Chapter 6028. Yu Linfeng's face, which was as warm as the wind, rippled with a comfortable smile. His bright eyes were like stars. I originally thought that our cultivation speed was already fast enough, but who would have thought that your cultivation speed would be even faster? Ever since they came to the D family, they had been cultivating in seclusion for the sake of increasing their cultivation as quickly as possible. As their elders, they couldn't keep dragging them down. However, they had spent so much time and accumulated countless cultivation resources to increase their cultivation speed. Yet, these little fellows had gone out to gain experience, yet their cultivation speed was much faster than theirs. It was simply terrifying. Master, you're already in the nebula realm. No one dares to say your cultivation speed is slow. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled sweetly. Her lovable appearance made everyone's mood unconsciously improve. If we weren't lucky enough to encounter the divine statue this time, it would be impossible for us to increase our cultivation like this. Beichen and I have already discussed this. Now that you're in the nebula realm, the family will often have opportunities to go out and gain experience. After coming to the upper realm, you've always stayed in the family and haven't gone to many places. Go out and gain experience and relax. Who knows, your cultivation might increase even faster. Even though she had been cultivating all this time, she had always been concerned about her parents' situation. Cultivating in seclusion would increase their cultivation speed, but they also needed to relax. Originally, they could also go to the abandoned immortal forest, but it was very dangerous. Recently, cultivators from the immortal region often appeared there. Even they couldn't guarantee that they could escape unscathed if they encountered them. Nebula realm cultivators had even less of a chance. Lan Yunxiao and the others looked at each other. In truth, they also felt that their cultivation speed had slowed recently. After staying here for so long, they also wanted to go out and take a look. If there's a suitable opportunity, we'll go take a look. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded with a smile. Although Lan Yunxiao was her father, it wouldn't be a problem for him to go out and gain experience with the others. A cultivator's lifespan would increase as their strength increased. Even in the D family, there were many cultivators of the same age. None of them gave up on increasing their strength. Almost every once in a while, the D family would organize people to go out and gain experience. This was because experience was often the best medicine to increase one's strength. Hongzhuang, the medicine you took out this time seems to be different from the last time. Nangongwu looked at the medicine in her hand. The color was completely different. After using the potions earlier, she realized how effective they were. Without these potions, their speed of improvement would not be as fast as it was now. However, at that time, although Hongzhuang had given them a lot of potions, the speed at which they used them was extremely fast. They had not used them for quite a long time. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. The effect of the medicine this time will be better than the previous one. The usage method is still the same. The medicinal bath will help to relax the body and improve the cultivation. Understood. Nangongwu raised her eyebrows slightly. Hongzhuang, your medical skills seem to have improved recently. Although I don't know much about this potion, I've heard people say that this potion of yours is amazing. In the entire upper realm, I'm afraid that we're the only ones who have used this potion. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Recently, I have indeed been learning medical skills. When my medical skills are higher, everyone's cultivation will be easier. Chapter 6029. Bailey Hongzhuang's clear eyes lit up when she sensed his deep concern. She walked over to Lan Yunxiao's side and sat down. Father, don't worry. I'm fine. You're a girl, yet you're so tired all the time. My heart aches when I see you like this. It was already very difficult for him to cultivate on a daily basis, not to mention that he had to study medical skills. Everyone seemed to have it easy, but as her father, he knew how hard Hongzhuang worked. Otherwise, how could she have mastered so many things at such a young age? Mu Lingbing noticed Lan Yunxiao's pained expression and her heart softened. They only had one daughter, and their biggest wish was for Hongzhuang to live happily. I really like my current life. As long as you're happy, I'm happy. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. She was never someone who didn't know how to be content. Now that her family, lover, and friend are all by her side, what was there for her to be dissatisfied with? Although her daily cultivation was tiring, she liked this feeling of fulfillment. She hoped that no matter what kind of danger she faced, she would have the ability to protect the people she cared about. Everyone was delighted when they noticed Bailey Hongzhuang's smile that spread from the bottom of her heart. Perhaps in other people's eyes, Hongzhuang was truly blessed, but they understood that all of this was related to Hongzhuang's hard work. When Di Yujue took the medicine from Di Beichen, he was also surprised. Hongzhuang refined it? Di Beichen nodded. Hongzhuang said that these medicines can be used as rewards for the younger generation. As for the medicine you all use during cultivation, she will refine it when her medical skills improve. Di Yujue smiled and patted Di Beichen's shoulder. His voice was filled with joy. You stinking brat. I really don't know where your good fortune came from to be able to find such a good wife like Hongzhuang. Father, you can't be envious of this. Di Beichen shrugged. Scram. Di Yujue waved his hand. Brat, you even dare to make fun of your father. Di Beichen chuckled and asked, Any news from the Jun family? Your judgment is correct. Jun Lingxuan is not coming back. The Jun family should be in a gloomy state right now. Jun Hongcheng is probably so anxious that his hair is about to fall out. Di Yujue's eyes flashed with a trace of ruthlessness and decisiveness. Now that the Jun family has suffered a great blow, the Xiao family seems to be on the verge of breaking off relations with them. We'll destroy the Jun family first once we officially break off our relationship with them. That way, we'll be able to put an end to all the grudges that have existed for so many years. After so many years of enmity, it was no longer something that could be explained in a few words. They had long since become irreconcilable enemies. Now that they had the advantage of time, place, and people, they naturally wouldn't show mercy. If the situation had been reversed, the Jun family wouldn't have shown any mercy either. There was no need to say anything else. The Xiao family wants to break off relations with the Jun family? Di Beichen's voice was indifferent and emotionless. That's right. Di Yujue's lips carried a trace of ridicule. Now that the situation has changed greatly, the Xiao family can only make such a decision if they want to find a way to survive. If the Xiao family asks for peace, what do you plan to do? Betrayal is betrayal in the end. Being forced to surrender is deceit. Di Yujue's eyes were deep, reflecting a sharp light. Di Beichen nodded. I don't need to worry. The Jun family situation was within his expectations. It was just that the speed of their collapse seemed to be faster than he thought. Chapter 60:30. I've never doubted my father's decisions, Di Beichen said slowly. Di Yujue looked at Di Beichen's old-fashioned appearance and was too lazy to say anything more. This guy was clearly his younger brother, but he looked much more mature than Xiaofeng. Just as the two were talking, Di Xiaofeng's figure suddenly appeared in their line of sight. Di Beichen, you're here too. Di Xiaofeng's face lit up. That's great. I don't have to run over to inform you later. Big brother, what happened? Big news. Di Xiaofeng's expression became serious. I just heard the news. You definitely won't be able to guess what happened. Don't keep us in suspense. What happened? Di Yujue's eyes narrowed. Right now, he was planning to find a right time to uproot the Jun family. He didn't want any more complications to arise at this time. I'm afraid the Xiao family and the Jun family won't break off their relationship. Di Xiaofeng's expression was a bit heavy. This wasn't good news for them. The reason why he had such an expression was because this matter was too shocking. Di Yujue's expression changed when he heard this. What happened? He already understood a lot of the current situation. This break was imperative. Logically speaking, there shouldn't be any waves. Xiao Shou is pregnant. Di Xiaofeng's words were like a heavy bomb that exploded in Di Beichen's and Di Yujue's hearts. The two's expressions froze for a moment with a bit of disbelief. Xiao Shou is pregnant? At this moment, even Di Beichen couldn't help but be surprised. She's pregnant with Jun Lingxuan's child? Di Yujue's expression became very ugly. If it was anything else, there might be a turning point. But if Xiao Shou was pregnant with Jun Lingxuan's child, then this alliance couldn't be broken up. Even if Jun Lingxuan had already fallen, The child in Xiao Sou's arms was the only flesh and blood he left behind. Presumably, Xiao Yanlong was also extremely shocked when he heard this news, but he couldn't ignore Xiao Sou's face. Previously, Jun Lingxuan and Xiao Sou were indeed engaged, but they weren't married yet. Now that Xiao Sou was pregnant with a child, their reputation wouldn't be good. If they broke off with the Jun family at this time, Xiao Sou would have no future. With how much Xiao Yanlong loved Xiao Yanlong, he probably wouldn't be able to make the decision to ignore it. Di Xiaofeng nodded. This news is very secretive. Our spies found it with great difficulty. It is said that Xiao Yanlong had already made up his mind to break off relations with the Jun family, but after this incident, he has not left the house for a few days. It seems that there's a change in this matter. Di Beichen's voice was slightly heavy. This matter was beyond everyone's expectations, but the one who was the most shocked was Xiao Yanlong. I'm afraid we'll have to consider this matter at length. The three of them looked at each other and felt helpless. The whole plan was disrupted just like that. Father, even if they form an alliance, we don't have to be afraid. Di Beichen's expression was calm. Originally, after the Xiao family had done so many excessive actions, they didn't plan to coexist peacefully with the Xiao family. They were only prepared to break them one by one. Now that they were together, although the process would become a lot more troublesome, the result would still be the same. Chapter 60:31. Di Yujue turned around and saw Di Beichen's determined expression. His heart trembled slightly. It seemed that Di Beichen was also determined in this aspect. I'm not afraid, but it'll be more troublesome. Di Yujue frowned and fell into deep thought. Dealing with him is inevitable, but before that, we have to try and see if we can open the land of heritage. As soon as he said that, Di Beichen and Di Xiaofeng looked at each other. They were also very curious about the land of heritage. It was an inheritance that belonged to the Di family, but it required three families to work together. He originally thought that once the alliance between the Xiao family and the Jun family was broken, it would be very easy for him to obtain the secret key from the Jun family. But now, it was probably not appropriate to directly seize it. In addition, the Dark Sanctuary was about to be established soon. It would not be good to cause more trouble at this time. Father, why don't Hong Zhuang and I try and see if our blood can open the land of heritage? Di Beichen said slowly. He had never come into contact with the land of heritage, but he had a faint feeling that they might really be able to open it. Your blood, Di Yujue pondered and said, I also think that it's feasible, but even if your blood can awaken the land of heritage, the three secret keys must be combined to open the door to the land of heritage. So before that, I need to think about how to solve this problem. Di Beichen nodded slightly. He understood this point. If it really didn't work, he would directly abolish the Jun family and the Xiao family. However, the two old foxes, Jun Hongcheng and Xiao Yanlong, would definitely be on guard. Actually, the land of heritage hasn't been open for a long time. It's also been a long time since a cultivator with a cursed body appeared in the family. Beichen, your appearance made me feel that the opportunity to open the land of heritage has arrived. Now everything is making me feel that the possibility is getting higher and higher. This is the family's secret that has been passed down to this day. I believe that after you go in, you will definitely gain a lot. So you must not give up this opportunity. Even if we have to keep them here for a while, we won't hesitate. Opening the secret realm is the most important thing. Di Yujue's expression was serious. Because the Di family had the land of heritage, the cultivation talents of the clansmen would be favored by the ancestors. This was also the reason why the Di family had always been so powerful. It was just that the land of heritage had not been open for too long, so this advantage was gradually disappearing. Luck was something that couldn't be explained in words. In the past, he felt that the luck of the Di family was gradually dissipating. But with the return of Beichen and Hong Zhuang, he felt that the luck of the Di family had returned. Not only had he returned, but he was also becoming stronger and stronger. With this sort of powerful fate, there were many things that he did not dare to do in the past that he did not have to worry about. Because karmic luck was such a mysterious thing. With its help, everything would proceed much more smoothly. Looking at Di Yujue's bright eyes, Di Beichen's lips also raised into a smile. "Father, no matter what, we will support your decision." He understood that, as the head of the family, his father had to consider many more things than them. But no matter what, they would not question D. Yujua's decision. "That's right, you can rest assured. Our D family is no longer the same as before. The Holy Maiden of Light and the Holy Son of Darkness are with us. What do we have to be afraid of?" D. Xiaofeng chuckled. Holy Son of Darkness. Chapter 6032. When Bailey Hongzhuang first took out the medicine, Di Yujue had given a portion of it as a reward for the outstanding disciples. Therefore, many cultivators in the Di family knew that this medicine was extremely effective. Cultivating while soaking in the medicinal bath was much faster than usual. Moreover, the refined elemental energy was very pure and could even subtly refine the elemental energy in the body. When they first received this medicine, everyone felt that it was strange. After all, most medicines were only effective in the early stages of cultivation. As one's strength increased, the medicine would no longer be effective. However, this medicine had completely overturned their judgment. Its effects were better than they had imagined. As a cultivator in the D family, everyone knew that the most important thing was not the improvement in front of them, but the space for their future development. As long as there was unlimited space for development, it didn't matter if they had to spend more time. If one's cultivation speed was too fast, their elemental energy would not be pure enough, and their foundation would not be stable enough. These were problems that almost every cultivator would encounter. Because there was competition everywhere in life, sometimes they had no choice but to ignore these hidden dangers. However, when they realized that this medicine could gradually solve the hidden dangers in their bodies, their hearts were filled with joy. The only regrettable thing was that there was not a lot of medicine and the family did not have any other way to obtain it. Otherwise, they would not hesitate to pay a higher price. It was only when everyone knew that this medicine was concocted by the young mistress that they completely understood. Perhaps only the young mistress's medical skills could concoct such an amazing medicine. If it was anyone else, they would not be able to do it. The young mistress had gone to the ancient battlefield to train, so they naturally did not have this medicine. This time, when everyone knew that the family had another medicine as a reward, they immediately understood that it must be the young mistress's doing. Most importantly, from the news that spread, they understood that this medicine was more effective than the previous ones. Immediately, all the cultivators began to work hard in their cultivation in order to obtain this medicine. Yujue, the disciples in the family, seemed to be working harder in their cultivation recently. Di Linxian looked at the prosperous scene of the Di family and felt comforted. After Beichen and Di Yujue returned, the family situation was really getting better. Even though everyone was usually very hard-working, he could still feel that everyone was working even harder. Di Yujue's eyes were also filled with satisfaction. Speaking of which, this matter is all thanks to Hongzhuang. Is it that medicine? Di Linxian had heard about the medicine long ago. He had a deep understanding of his granddaughter-in-law's medical skills. Back then, there were countless people who came because of Hongzhuang's reputation. They were either stopped by them or asked Dr. Wu for help. This medicine was only circulated within the family. If it were to spread out, it would probably cause another wave. Di Yujue nodded. That's right. The effect of this medicine is excellent. The younger generation is working hard to cultivate in order to obtain this medicine. Hongzhuang is really a smart girl. Di Linxian sighed and said, "This is also due to your contributions. If you didn't have the courage to reject the Shao clan back then, this wouldn't have happened." Chapter 6033. If they had chosen to have a marriage alliance with the Shao family, then the situation would have been different. Di Yujue chuckled, his gaze deep and distant. Actually, this was Beichen's choice. With Beichen's feelings for Hongzhuang, if we asked him to give up on Hongzhuang, I'm afraid he would abandon us. A smile appeared in Di Yujue's eyes. He understood Beichen's character very well. Perhaps he had taken after him. Being born into a family, it was already very difficult for him to cultivate. If he couldn't even let his feelings follow his heart, then what was the point of living and pursuing? It was because of this that he had never thought of restricting his child's feelings. Even when he was engaged to the Shao family, He didn't say that it was a dead end. He had also said that the most important thing was to see his child's wishes. If the D family wasn't in a disadvantageous situation back then, he wouldn't have chosen to have a marriage alliance. Following D Yujue's words, D Linxian couldn't help but laugh. I agree with what you said. Even if Beiqian was wholeheartedly doing it for the family, they were very clear that none of them could compare to Hong Zhuang in his heart. Haha, D Yujue laughed. That's why I said that Beiqian has the best taste. While the D family's cultivators were working hard to obtain the medicine, Bailey Hong Zhuang and the others were also working hard to cultivate in the abandoned immortal forest. They only cultivated one move every day, but everyone's progress was very fast. Now everyone could use this move, but there was still a gap between them and how easy it was to use it, as Senior Yu had said. Everyone could clearly feel their progress. Every day that they practiced, their speed would increase by a bit. Although they still couldn't control their strength easily, under the influence of others, everything was quietly improving. Bailey Hongzhuang studied medicine every night, while Di Beiqian began to study formations. Previously, he was already quite interested in formations. His wife was so skilled in so many methods, so he had to work hard. Beiqian, you've been studying formations quite seriously recently. When Xiren looked at Di Beiqian teasingly, do you feel a sense of crisis because Hong Zhuang is too outstanding? Bai Li Yin Che also smiled and said, there is no danger in the upper realm, but once you go to the immortal realm, there will be countless powerful geniuses. Big Sister is so beautiful, so it's easy for her to get into trouble. In addition, she's so outstanding. When the time comes, she'll definitely be like a crazy bee and a butterfly. You won't be able to stop her. It's only right for her to feel a little threatened. Di Beiqian turned to look at the two guys who were looking at him with interest. From their expressions, he sensed that they wanted to see the world in chaos. He continued to practice the formation and said unhurriedly, one of you is despised by Madam, and the other hasn't won her heart yet. How can you understand my happiness? I didn't say it because I didn't want to hurt you. When Xiren and Bali Yinshe looked at each other, their original playfulness had completely disappeared. They suppressed the urge to beat him up and turn around. They'd better continue to soak in the medicinal bath. No one could compare to this guy when he was showing off his happiness. Di Beiqian's lips slowly curled into a teasing smile. His eyes, which were as deep as the sea, were filled with seriousness. Under the light, his devilishly charming face became even more noble, exuding a charming charm. Chapter 6034. Without sufficient power, how could he protect his loved ones? In the past, he always felt that he was extremely hard-working in his cultivation. However, after meeting Hong Zhuang, he felt that she was the one who was truly hard-working. They were a match made in heaven. As her husband, how could he not follow in his wife's footsteps? According to what his master told him previously, once he grasped a high-level formation, his combat power would increase greatly. Formations had many uses. As long as it was used properly, it could be used in a normal battle. From the time he faced the skeleton at the training ground, he already understood the use of formations. All these days, he had not put down his formations. However, learning formations was not an easy task. Every formation required him to deliberate carefully. As long as he was careless during the construction, it would result in failure. As for high-level formations, it was even more complicated. A formation was made up of many small formations. Finally, these small formations were gathered together. During this process, as long as there was a slight mistake, it would result in the failure of the formation. Fortunately, the knowledge that his master left behind for him was very impressive. It allowed him to avoid many detours when he was studying. Now, he could already construct many formations. He believed that there would be some use. If he wanted to fight against cultivators of the same level, he still needed to work hard on his formations. Learning formations was actually similar to learning medical skills. Learning medical skills required one to understand the uses and effects of various medicinal herbs. Only then could one be able to concoct high-level medicine with ease. The most important part of learning array formations was the simple small array formations, because every large array formation was made up of small array formations. The initial learning was the most difficult. The more familiar one was with it, the faster one would improve. The sky was clear and the clouds were beautiful. The birds were chirping and the flowers were fragrant. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest stood on the river as usual, practicing their sword moves. As their control over their elemental energy increased, everyone was shocked to find that they could stand on the river for a longer time with the same amount of elemental energy. However, before they could cultivate for long, a heavy sound was heard from behind. Following, there was a voice filled with impatience. Their line of sight turned and saw a humongous imperial wind horse elephant walking over slowly. There was a mystic fire demon rock following closely beside it. It was obviously trying to please it. "Why are you always following me?" Flowery looked at Xiao Xuanzi impatiently. She really had to hand it to this guy. What sin had he committed? This fellow would come looking for it whenever it had nothing to do, making it unable to stay still. "I saw that you were too lonely, so I wanted to accompany you," little Xuanzi said matter-of-factly, as if he didn't feel Little Blossom's disdain at all. "I don't feel lonely." Little Blossom didn't give him any face at all. "I feel lonely. Is that okay?" Little Xuanzi moved closer to Little Blossom, and his face was full of smiles. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at each other. They understood that Xiao Xuanzi really liked Xiaohua. When Xiao Xuanzi saw a little flower for the first time, it was love at first sight. When they were in the ancient battlefield, little Xuanzi had been hoping to come back as soon as possible. He had not seen it for a few days, so he must have gone to look for Little Blossom. Chapter 60:35. Zhong Limu. Little Blossom walked to Zhong Limu's side. She really regretted coming to find Zhong Limu a while ago to provoke such a follower. This guy had been following her for the past few days. No matter how she attacked him, he didn't seem to feel anything at all. It was as if the person she was talking about wasn't him. This feeling made her very sullen. How could a wind-riding horse elephant like her be with a mystical fire demonic rock? Although the mystical fire demonic rock's level was very high, this guy was obviously younger than her. "Little Blossom, what's wrong?" Zhong Limu went ashore and looked at Little Blossom with a smile. Before Di Beichen and the others came, Little Blossom was his only friend. "Zhong Limu, I really can't stand this guy anymore. Help me get rid of him." Hearing this, Zhong Limu was slightly stunned. His expression was a bit awkward. Although he didn't know much about love from everyone's conversation, he understood that little Xuanzi was like this because he had a good impression of Little Blossom. Rejecting little Xuanzi like this without giving him any hope was a bit too cruel. Looking at Zhong Limu's awkward expression, Little Blossom sighed. She didn't want to hurt this guy, but she really didn't feel anything. "Little Xuanzi, right?" Little Blossom slowly said. Little Xuanzi nodded. "You remember my name." Little Blossom paused, then continued. "You and I are not suitable. You haven't even transformed into a human form. I don't like demonic beasts that are weaker than me." Little Xuanzi let out a sigh of relief. "I thought you were going to say something. Actually, I can transform into a human form long ago. You can rest assured." Little Blossom's eyes were filled with astonishment. Little Xuanzi had been by her side for a few days, including before. She had never seen little Xuanzi transform into a human form. She always thought that little Xuanzi was still young and his strength hadn't reached this step yet. "You don't believe me?" Noticing Little Blossom's expression, little Xuanzi quickly said, "If you don't believe me, I can prove it to you." In the next moment, little Xuanzi transformed into a young man in front of everyone's eyes. The young man wore a navy blue satin brocade robe, and a bright blue-silver belt with a python pattern was tied around his waist. He had a head full of thick black hair and a pair of bright eyes like the stars. His face was filled with a sense of intimacy. Little Xuanzi was different from Bai Li Yinche's tall and straight. He had a round body, but he wasn't ugly. When he smiled, his eyes narrowed into slits, and his entire being was filled with an indescribable affinity. Long ago, everyone already knew that the reason why Xiao Xuanzi was unwilling to transform into a human was because he was fat, but they didn't know what kind of fat method it was. Little Blossom's charm is really great. Previously, we tried all kinds of methods, but couldn't make Little Schwanzi reveal his true body. Little Blossom only needed to say one sentence, and Little Schwanzi directly revealed his human body. Little Schwanzi has always valued his lover over his friends. You should be used to it. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. This situation was also out of her expectations. But thanks to Little Blossom, they finally saw Little Schwanzi's true appearance. Chapter 6036. This kind of fatness was not as serious as he made it out to be. Xiao He and Xiao Bai were also disappointed. They thought that they would be able to see a big round fatty. They did not expect that it was not that serious at all. Really, Little Schwanzi, there's no need to hide this kind of situation at all. I was happy for nothing. Xiao He pursed her lips. In the past, Little Schwanzi had always wanted to help Yin She block the wild bees and butterflies after transforming into his human form. Later, he did not transform into his human form because he was fat. They had always been looking forward to it. Bailey Hongzhuang reached out and flicked Xiao He's forehead. Little Schwanzi probably knew that you would definitely ridicule him, so he did not transform into his human form. Little Schwanzi has always been very picky about his appearance. At this time, Di Beichen's voice suddenly sounded. He said with a smile that did not look like a smile, "Haven't you noticed that he has even resisted the temptation of delicious food recently?" As soon as he said this, everyone was stunned. Recalling the situation during this period, they felt that Di Beichen's words were indeed very reasonable. Even when they went to the Emperor Cloud City to eat and drink, Little Schwanzi did not follow them. This was completely different from Little Schwanzi's previous style. This guy was a complete glutton before he transformed into his human form. So, Little Schwanzi has been on a diet for a long time. Shangguan Yingying was slightly stunned. She really did not pay much attention to this situation before. After Di Beichen's reminder, she finally remembered. I remember that when Little Schwanzi said that he was fat, he was just saying it. When he ate, he would still fight with us. When did he change? When Xiren frowned. He recalled that when Xiao Schwanzi snatched his food, he had even mocked him. This guy kept saying that he was fat, but when it came to eating, he was not careless at all. Just when did this situation start to change? He could not remember for a while. Since he saw Xiaohua, Di Beichen slowly turned his gaze. Little Schwanzi was his contracted beast, so he naturally knew it best. He had already noticed the changes in Xiao Schwanzi long ago. Although he didn't know why Little Schwanzi fell in love with Little Blossom at first sight, it didn't care about him even if he was fat before it met Little Blossom. Because of this, he knew that Xiao Schwanzi really liked Flowery. Even if this feeling was somewhat unexpected, liking someone was something without a reason. Little Blossom looked at Little Schwanzi in a daze. It did not expect Little Schwanzi to have transformed into a human. Previously, he had thought of a reason with great difficulty, but now, it did not seem to be persuasive. Even if you can take human form, I still don't like fatties. Flowery left behind a sentence and quickly left. In the air, Little Schwanzi's voice slowly spread out. "It's okay, I can reduce it." Looking at Little Blossom's disappearing figure, Little Schwanzi originally wanted to chase after him, but in the end he lowered his head dejectedly, looking dejected. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others felt a little uncomfortable. Normally, Xiao Schwanzi had always been very cheerful, and this was the first time he had seen him like this. That kind of sadness could be seen in his eyes. "Little Schwanzi, don't be anxious. How can you chase someone so quickly?" Xiao Bai could not help but advise. Chapter 6037. Xiao He comforted him seriously. They were used to bickering with Xiao Schwanzi, so when they saw Xiao Schwanzi's sad expression, they did not know what to do. This guy was not suited to have such a sad expression. However, when Xiao He said that, Di Beichen's expression stiffened. When Xiren and the rest turned to look at Di Beichen. Speaking of which, they really did not know how Beichen had captured Hongzhuang's heart in the past. Even when they asked in private, Di Beichen had an unfathomable look. However, Xiao He's words just now had exposed him. Beichen had actually been despised by Hong Zhuang before. Now that the evidence was irrefutable, this guy could no longer pretend to be a wolf in sheep's clothing, right? Looking at everyone's worried expression, Xiao Xuanzi suddenly chuckled, and his gloomy eyes immediately regained their luster. How can I despair so easily? It takes some time to chase a girl, not to mention that my Xiao Hua is so pretty, it's normal that it's hard to chase after her. Xiao Xuanzi raised his eyebrows slightly, and he was in high spirits, not at all frustrated. Don't worry, I'll definitely get Xiao Hua. Xiao Xuanzi, you're really wasting my feelings. Xiao He looked at Xiao Xuanzi in disdain. It was rare for it to be seriously comforted, but this guy was completely joking. After this incident, I understand that you're not heartless. Nonsense. Of course I have a conscience. After everyone was relieved, Xiren then turned his attention to Di Beichen. Beichen, I heard that you were despised when you were chasing after Hong Zhuang. Xiao He realized that it seemed to have said something wrong, and could not help but shrink its neck. It did not mean to ruin its male owner's image. Madam, when you first met me, you had a strong sense of self-preservation. Di Beichen left the sentence and jumped to the middle of the river. Stronger sense of self-protection? Xiren raised his eyebrows. What does that mean? Shang Guanying also had a thoughtful look on her face. Did they say that Hong Zhuang was unapproachable at that time? Bailey Hong Zhuang covered her face and laughed. When she first met Beichen, this guy could be described as a scoundrel. She thought that she was being haunted by a scoundrel, but later she found out what he was really like. Hong Zhuang, why don't you tell us about it? Shang Guanying turned around, her face full of curiosity. I have to hurry up and cultivate. Bailey Hong Zhuang pointed to the front. In the next moment, her figure flashed and appeared beside Di Beichen. Seeing this, Xiren and Shang Guanying rolled their eyes. The fire of gossip was burning in their hearts, but it was extinguished by these two guys with a basin of cold water. Suddenly, the two of them turned to look at Xiao He. I have to go cultivate too. Little Black ran off like a wisp of smoke. Xiao Bai, my stomach hurts a little, I'll leave first. Xiao Xuanzi, I didn't appear at that time. While Di Beichen and the rest were cultivating, Di Yujia was assessing the situation and thinking about his attitude towards the Xiao family and the Jun family. After discussing with Di Linxian, he felt that opening the Land of Heritage was the most important thing. After so many years, the Land of Heritage had not been opened. If they had the chance to see it with their own eyes, they would have no regrets in life. Chapter 6038. After communicating with Junhong Cheng and Xiao Yanlong, Di Yujia knew what they were thinking. However, it was a little troublesome for them. They want us to wait for a year. Di Linxian frowned. A year was enough for a lot of changes to happen. The Jun and Xiao families had suffered great losses. Although it would still be troublesome for them to make a move, they would have less of an advantage if they waited for a year. Di Yujia nodded. His handsome face was solemn, and his deep eyes were covered with a haze. These two old foxes know how important the Land of Heritage is to us. They also know very well that once we make a move, our families will be wiped out. As long as we make a move, they will hide the secret key forever. After so many years of dealing with them, he knew Xiao Yanlong and Jun Linshuan's personalities very well. If they were to attack, these two fellows would definitely do the same. When that happens, trouble would be inevitable. I think that the reason why they need a year is not only to buy time for their families, but also to allow Xiao So to give birth to the child. Di Yujia pondered. Xiao So's pregnancy was already set in stone. Based on Xiao So's current condition, it was impossible for her to participate in the exploration of the Land of Heritage. After a year, she would be able to appear in front of the world without any accidents. What you said makes sense. Di Linxian nodded. Has the news been spread? That's not true. Apart from our spies, the Xiao family and the Jun family didn't announce this information to the public. I think that they still want to protect Xiao So's reputation. This must be Xiao Yanlong's idea. However, that old fellow Junhong Cheng must be pushing the boat with the current. As long as this news is not spread, he can guarantee the safety of his only child. Di Linxian sneered. Retribution is inevitable for those who have done too many bad things. As soon as he said this, Di Yujue's eyes narrowed. A fierce look flashed across his eyes. Back then, Beichen had been taken away by the Jun family not long after he was born. How could such a devoid of humanity worry about such things? Father, do you think we can agree to this? Di Yujue spoke slowly, his eyes as dark as the night. Di Lin Xian gazed at the sky that was filled with red clouds. His hoarse voice gradually rang out. It's just a final struggle. So be it. Once the Di family's inheritance is opened, they will be no match for us. The Xiao family. As Jun Lingxuan did not return, Jun Hongcheng was already extremely disappointed. In a short period of time, he aged a lot. He had thought that there was no more hope in life, and that perhaps he could only choose an outstanding cultivator from the other clansmen to be the young master. However, at this moment, the Xiao clan suddenly sent news that Xiao Sou was pregnant. When he heard the news, he was stunned for a long time. He even suspected that there was something wrong with his ears. Only after the other party repeated it again and again did he confirm that all of this was true. This was a pleasant surprise for him. There was always a way out. He was going to have a grandson. Hence, Jun Hongcheng had immediately made his way to the Xiao family. Xiao Yanlong also felt humiliated by the news of Xiao Sou's pregnancy. It had not been easy for him to think of a way out, but now it was gone. It seems that the heavens wanted to tie us to the same boat. Brother Jun, do you think that Di Yujue will agree to our conditions? Chapter 6039. Jun Hongcheng's worries were no less than Xiao Yanlong's. However, the only thing he could do now was to rope in the Xiao family. Otherwise, once the Xiao family left, the Jun family would really be finished. Fortunately, they now had a grandson as a link between them. This alliance would not fall apart so easily. He will agree. Jun Hongcheng's expression was serious. Although this land of heritage has benefits for all three of our families, and the knockout powder has always been controlled by our three families, this land of heritage belongs to the Di family. Once approved by the land of heritage, the cultivators of the Di family will possess a mysterious power. He will definitely not give up on such an important matter. Although this land of heritage has been passed down for many years, it has not been opened for a long time. I don't know if Di Beichun can really open it. Xiao Yanlong's expression was complicated. What they knew about the land of heritage was only the information passed down by their ancestors. Even they had not seen the real thing. Hearing this, Jun Hongcheng's expression also became serious. In fact, he did not want to admit how outstanding Di Beichun was. However, he had to admit that this guy's luck was really unstoppable. Back then, he had not fallen under such circumstances. He had actually relied on his own efforts to ascend from the lower realm to the upper realm. This was already incredible. Now this guy was becoming more and more unstoppable. Coupled with his cursed body, he might really be able to open the land of heritage. Perhaps it really is possible. Xiao Yanlong sighed. It was clearly a good hand, but he had played it badly. Choices were indeed the most terrifying. Once a wrong decision was made, there was no way to make up for it. Inside the house, Xiao Sou stroked her belly. Her expression was complicated yet gentle. There was a trace of longing in her eyes. Qing Devil, why don't you come back? We even have a child. As long as you come back, we will be a complete family. She liked the Qing Devil. Even if the Qing Devil did not plan to return to the Jun family, she still liked that powerful man. As for the child in her belly, she did not regret it. She understood that everyone might criticize her situation, but she didn't care because the child's father was from the celestial realm. As long as she could see Qing Devil again in the future, she believed that Qing Devil would recognize them. Child, you have to work hard. When the time comes, we'll go and find your father together. Xiao Sou's lips curled up slightly. There was now an inseparable connection between her and the Azure Fiend. She believed that she would definitely see Qing Devil again. Di Beichen wasn't surprised when he heard about the Xiao family and the Jun family's proposals. 1 year's time. This is giving the Jun family and the Xiao family some breathing room. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyes slightly. Although the Xiao family and the Jun family had lost many outstanding cultivators, and it was impossible for them to fully recover in a year, it would still be troublesome. Father has his own considerations. The land of heritage is too important to the family. Di Baichen looked calm. In fact, he had already guessed that his father would make such a decision. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. The land of heritage is so magical. It will definitely be a surprise when it is opened. Although we can't take action immediately, they won't be much of a threat to us if we give them 1 year's time. Di Baichen smiled and held Bailey Hongzhuang in his arms. She also rested her head on his arm. Chapter 60-40. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. In a year, the sacred assembly should have been established. There were many cultivators in the dark assembly now. Huang Futing was originally the leader, but he went to the Huangfu family to pick up his beloved girl. In addition to Huang Futing, there were a few people who were also thinking about the sacred assembly. When Huang Futing was not there, they would take over. Even though Di Baichen spent most of his time cultivating in the abandoned immortal forest, he had always been very concerned about the Dark Assembly. As long as there was any news, the people of the Sacred Assembly would immediately come to inform him and wait for his decision. The Dark Assembly was about to be established, so there was no need to worry about the original cultivators. They could be trusted. At present, they were only preparing to establish the Dark Assembly's headquarters near Emperor Cloud City. They hadn't considered a branch yet. It was enough to have so many trustworthy people in the headquarters. Now, the main thing they needed to deal with was that once the news of the Dark Assembly's establishment spread, it would definitely cause an uproar in the upper realm. At that time, there would inevitably be a lot of unfavorable comments, but they had also made plans to deal with it. Di Baichen was a darkness attribute cultivator, and this was long known. Although the establishment of the Dark Assembly subverted everyone's usual understanding and the opposition would be unprecedentedly strong, they weren't afraid. Darkness attribute cultivators had indeed done wrong for many years, but so many years had passed, and all the punishment should be over. Di Baichen raised his eyebrows slightly. Huang Futing has been home for a while, so he should be coming back soon. I think his speed should be quite fast. Miss Wan has long been prepared to abandon everything and leave with him. I think that as long as he appears, Miss Wan will definitely leave with him without hesitation. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were full of joy and blessings. This Miss Wan courage to risk everything for love was admirable. Although her family might be angry because of this, no one could say who was right and who was wrong in this kind of matter. If she was depressed for the rest of her life, it would be better to live a carefree life. What she could do for her family, she had already done. Not only Miss Wan but Huang Fuchen should also be able to. The corners of Di Baichen's lips curled up into a faint smile. He also felt that this fellow who followed Huang Futing wholeheartedly was very interesting. Although it was not of the dark attribute, following Huang Futing was still a good thing. I remember him. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up. I think his character is very good. He's simple and pure. Perhaps his family has protected him too well. He doesn't seem like someone from a big family at all. After I came back, I inquired about this. Huang Fuchun is the favored young master of the Huangfu family. Although he is young, his talent is not weak. Coupled with his aloof personality, the Huangfu clan likes him. The younger generation also doesn't want to compete with him. This is also very good. At least I can live freely and not have to worry about so many schemes. Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze was leisurely. People with this kind of character were rare and precious in their eyes. Let's go to the headquarters tomorrow and take a look. Maybe they've already returned. All right. The sun shone on the ground, full of vitality. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen left the Di family early in the morning and went to the Dark Sacred Assembly. Chapter 60-41. Huang Futing, Huang Fuchun, and a beautiful figure. Although he had never seen her before, there was no doubt that she was Miss Wan. Young master, young madam. Huang Futing was pleasantly surprised when he saw Di Baichen. Are you going to the Sacred Assembly? Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen smiled at the same time. We wanted to go to the Sacred Assembly today to see if you came. We didn't expect to meet you on the way. Huang Futing was also pleasantly surprised. I just came back yesterday. It was late, so I didn't want to disturb you. Today, I wanted to tell you that I'm back. It seems that our hearts are connected. When he returned to his family this time, he didn't feel as disappointed and frustrated as before. On the contrary, the family that used to be extremely important to him was no longer so important now. He suddenly felt that he was ridiculous back then. The feeling of being abandoned by his family had lasted for a long time in his heart. He had never been able to let it go, but now he didn't know when he had completely let it go. He no longer had the same feeling as before. He even felt that he was the real him now. He didn't have to bear the expectations of his family. He could do what he liked. He was free and at ease. There were people he wanted to protect by his side. He had ideals in his heart. Everything made him happy from the bottom of his heart. Di Beichen chuckled. After being brothers for so long, we have a tacit understanding after all. Huang Fuchun looked at Di Beichen curiously. Whether it was Di Beichen or Bailey Hongzhuang, they were both influential figures. Although he had already seen them on the ancient battlefield, he was still curious about them. Along the way, his big brother had told him that young Master Di and the others were very good people. His big brother was willing to go through fire and water for them. He had always had some doubts in his heart, but after seeing Di Beichen's amiable and approachable appearance, he suddenly didn't feel strange and nervous. This person was really a very good big brother. Young master, let me introduce you. This is Qin Wan. The woman was wearing a light red peony jade brocade robe with a collar and narrow sleeves. She was wearing a white pleated skirt with colorful embroidery. She was wearing 3 embroidered golden plum blossoms and bamboo leaves. Her thick and shiny long hair was combed into a unique bun with a double-knot tortoise-shell flower hairpin. The hairpin swayed slightly when she smiled. She looked more beautiful than flowers. As soon as Qin Wan appeared, she was noticed by Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen. This was an elegant and shy woman. Standing beside the tall and strong Huang Futing, she looked petite and cute. With just a casual glance, they could see that Huang Futing loved Qin, Wan loved and loved Qin. There's a big difference in their figures. Was a perfect match when they stood, was a perfect match when they stood as well as when they stood, was a perfect match, was is. Miss Wan, we have heard of your name a long time ago. Di Beichen smiled faintly. With you here, Huang Futing will be more at ease in the future. Hearing Di Beichen's words, Qin Wan couldn't help but glance at Huang Futing. However, she saw that Huang Futing was taking it for granted. Her cheeks suddenly flushed. Thank you, young Master Di, for taking care of Huang Futing. If it weren't for you, I'm afraid I wouldn't have the chance to see him. Qin Wan was grateful to the 2 people in front of her from the bottom of her heart. Chapter 6042. Huang Futing had never been a person who gave up on himself, but he had drifted outside for too long. The only thing he could do was to let the dark attribute cultivators who were being bullied huddle together for warmth. But if he wanted the dark attribute cultivators to completely stand up, only Di Beichen could do it. Even if the Dark Assembly hadn't been established yet, he felt that he had already stood up. Di Beichen quietly glanced at Huang Futing and said, "The heavens have destined you two to be together." Looking at Huang Futing and Qin Wan's happy appearance, Bailey Hongzhuang also felt happy from the bottom of her heart. In order to welcome Miss Wan and young Master Chun, how about we go to Drunken Origin Tower for a drink? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Beichen with a sweet smile. Since Huang Futing had returned, they could start preparing. Di Beichen nodded. Madam, you can make the decision. Huang Futing and the other 2 followed behind the 2 with smiles on their faces. Then, many thanks to young Master and Madam. Big brother, young Master Di, and the others are really like you said. They don't put on airs at all. Huang Fuchun breathed a sigh of relief. With his status in the family, he had never been bullied before. He really wanted to follow his big brother, but if the other party didn't like him, he didn't know what to do. However, the problem he had been worried about along the way didn't seem to be a problem at all after seeing Di Beichen. Di Beichen didn't show the slightest doubt or dissatisfaction towards him. It was as if he had seen a family member. Immersed in this relaxed and comfortable atmosphere, He felt his whole body relax. "I've told you not to worry." Huang Futing shook his head, but the corners of his mouth couldn't help but rise. "Young master and madam are very good people. There won't be any problems at all, so you can rest assured." Huang Fuqin nodded slightly. "I believe you now." Drunken Origin Tower. Bailey Hongshuang's group of 5 sat down in a private room. Everyone was very familiar with Emperor Cloud City. Di Beichen handed the task of ordering to Huang Futing. He didn't know much about Huang Fuchun and Qin Wan so he naturally didn't know their tastes. After Huang Futing finished ordering, Di Beichen ordered 2 of Bailey Hongshuang's favorite snacks. "Young master, I heard a piece of news. Xiao So seems to be pregnant." It was not until the door to the private room closed that Huang Futing began to talk about what he had learned recently. "How'd you know?" Di Beichen was a little surprised. The Jun family and the Xiao family had hidden this information very deeply. Not many people knew about this situation. Hearing Di Beichen's words, Huang Futing was also stunned. "Little lord, you already know?" Di Beichen nodded. "I heard the news not long ago. I got this news by accident. I know a friend who is a doctor. Xiao Sei Wu's maidservant once went to buy medicine from him. That's how I got to know. So that's how it is." Di Beichen understood. Paper couldn't wrap fire. No matter how much the Xiao family wanted to cover up this news, it was inevitable that it would be leaked. Calculating the time when Xiao Sou was pregnant, I think this child may not be Jun Lingshuan's, but Qing Devil's. Chapter 6043. It can't be. Qin Wan couldn't believe it. She didn't have much contact with Xiao Sou, but as the former Saintess of Light, she was very famous. Since Bailey Hongzhuang became the Saintess of Light, Xiao Sou's previous glory had disappeared. However, love was very important in the heart of every woman. How could Xiao Sou do such a thing? Looking at Qin Wan Er's incredulous look, Huang Futing shook his head. Xiao Sou's situation is different. No one knows whether she has feelings for Jun Lingshuan or not. Qing Devil is from the Immortal region. I think Xiao Sou has no resistance to him. She has even fallen in love with him for a long time. Yes, Di Beichen looked calm. She has long known that Qing Devil is not Jun Lingshuan, but she has been protecting him. When we attacked, she even risked her life to save him. From this point, a lot of things have been revealed. It was because of Xiao Sou's action that they were very sure that her feelings for Qing Devil were not ordinary. We also think that it is very likely that this is Qing Devil's child. Bailey Hongzhuang looked thoughtful. She took a sip of tea and said, "So, Xiao Sou will definitely give birth to this child. No matter from the perspective of liking Qing Devil or from the situation of the Jun family and the Xiao family, Xiao Sou would make this decision." Although this made everyone very surprised and emotional, after thinking about it carefully, many things could be understood. "Young master, what's your plan now?" Huang Futing looked serious. Since he followed Di Beichen, his ideas had completely changed. He didn't want to follow the Dark Sacred Assembly, but Di Beichen. Therefore, no matter whether it was the Dark Sacred Assembly or the Di family, he would try his best to help. Let's put the matters of the Jun family and the Xiao family aside for the time being. After everything is ready, let's announce the establishment of the Dark Sacred Assembly, Di Beichen said slowly, with an elegant and confident smile on his lips. As soon as he said this, Huang Futing's eyes also flashed with a dazzling luster like stars, bright and excited. "Young master, are you really ready?" Since the day he followed Di Beichen, he had been looking forward to the establishment of the Dark Sacred Assembly. Just thinking about it, he couldn't help but be excited. And now, this day was really coming. One could imagine the excitement in his heart. Di Beichen nodded. The Dark Sacred Assembly's establishment. Now that everyone has been through the baptism of the Dark Temple, this is a God-given opportunity. Everyone is prepared for so long, just for this day. I hope that everyone will not have to worry about their own attributes from now on. He understood that after going to the celestial realm, the problems and difficulties would be even greater. However, at least in the upper realm, he had to first complete his master's dying wish. "Young master," Huang Futing's eyes flashed. He knew very well that whether the Dark Sacred Assembly was established or not didn't have much impact on Bachin. With his identity and status, he didn't need to bear all of this, nor did he need to suffer the criticism of others. However, he was willing to do all of this for the sake of darkness attribute cultivators. How could I not be moved by this? Not only him, but almost all the brothers and sisters of the Dark Sacred Assembly had the same idea. People's hearts were always relative. Chapter 6044. While you were away, everyone had already prepared everything needed for the Sacred Assembly. Later, when we go back, we can see if there's anything we missed. Then, we can choose a suitable day to announce the establishment. His extraordinarily handsome face exuded an innate air of nobility. It was clearly a simple sentence, but when it came out of his mouth, it carried an indescribable confidence, causing everyone to involuntarily believe that all of this would be completed smoothly. Once the Dark Sacred Assembly is announced, it will definitely cause an uproar in the upper realm. Young master, have you thought about it? Huang Futing was silent for a moment. No matter how surprised he was about this idea, his rationality told him that all of this was never simple. When the time came, the counterattack might be beyond their imagination. If this matter was so easy to achieve, then the dark attribute cultivators would not have been struggling at death's door for so many years. Even if everyone opposes it, what's there to be afraid of? His faint voice was full of confidence. A trace of pride and fierceness flashed in the depths of Bachin's eyes. An incomparably proud aura quietly circulated, with open-mindedness and indifference. From the moment he made this decision, he knew that this situation could not be avoided. He had long been mentally prepared. Not only him, but Hong Zhuang and the entire D family were also prepared. Huang Futing, Huang Fuchun, and Qinwan all looked at Bachin in shock. Facing such a heroic and ambitious Bachin, they suddenly felt that their thoughts were too narrow. Perhaps it was because they had always been restrained that they could not reach Bachin's height. Yes, with such strength at such a young age, he should do whatever he wanted to do boldly. There was no point in being timid. Huang Fuchin's eyes lit up. He only felt that his blood was ignited. He had never seen such a fearless person. Even if it was his elder brother, he always had to consider the interests of the family and had many concerns. However, there was no trace of hesitation on Bachin's body at all. He was so magnanimous that it made them feel ashamed of their inferiority. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Since this matter is inevitable, there's no need to worry so much. You're right. I was thinking too much. Huang Futing breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that there was no need for him to remind them. The young master and madam had already thought everything through. He had been worried that everyone's efforts during this period of time would be defeated in a short period of time under the opposition of the secular world. However, he also understood that the wise Bachin had probably already thought of all these situations. He felt a little more confident. I will also pay attention to the Holy Light Assembly during this period. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression darkened. As the Saint of Light, she understood the situation better than anyone else. Among all the guilds, the Holy Light Guild had the most opinions. However, she was the Holy Maiden of the Light. With her mediating between them, things would eventually be better. As long as the Holy Light Assembly did not object, he believed that the various large guilds would not object for long. Miss Hongzhuang, I really admire you. Qinwan could not help but admire her. Facing such a situation, Bailey Hongzhuang was under a lot of pressure. When the time came, she was afraid that all the spearheads would be pointed at her. Chapter 6045. Hearing Qinwan's words, Bailey Hongzhuang also chuckled. Your courage and decisiveness are what everyone admires. For so many years, she had always held onto one belief, which was to be with Huang Futing. She even tried her best to get the letter of divorce. In the eyes of many people, this was an incredible thing. Qinwan shook her head. This is just the courage of a little girl. It's completely different from yours. Her betrayal of everything was just running away from home. After leaving the Qin family and the Huangfu family, she still had other places to go. In this vast upper realm, she could easily find a place for herself to stay. As long as she concealed her identity and changed her life, she could live the life she wanted. Bailey Hongzhuang was different. She was now the focus of attention. When she stood beside Di Beichun, it was really like betraying the whole world for one person. She might even lose the position of the Holy Maiden. This kind of abandonment was unimaginable for ordinary people. She was very likely to be pointed at and criticized by everyone. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Her exquisite face was filled with a sunny and open-minded smile. At that moment, she was magnificent. Actually, to me, these are not important. If the Holy Assembly opposes it, then I won't be the Holy Maiden. In her heart, other than the people she cared about, she could give up everything else. The position of the Holy Maiden was far less important than Di Beichun in her heart. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Huang Futing and the other two were shocked. Perhaps only Bailey Hongzhuang could say such words, right? Recalling how much Xiao Shou valued the position of the Holy Maiden, and then looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's indifferent appearance, it was really ironic. But it was such a Bailey Hongzhuang that exuded a charming charm. I also want to join the Dark Assembly, Huang Fuchun said excitedly. He had to join such a sacred assembly. I also want to join, Qin Wanner said with a smile. Dark Sanctum. Now, everyone in the Dark Sacred Assembly had smiles on their faces. They all knew that the day they had been looking forward to was getting closer and closer. Brother Huangfu has already gone to look for the young master today. I think they might be discussing the date of the Sacred Assembly's establishment. It's very possible. Young master said that he wants to get this done within a year. Just thinking about it makes me excited. Actually, even if the Sacred Assembly doesn't exist, I'm already very satisfied. A cultivator's face was filled with a contented smile. Back then, they did not have any cultivation methods and could only be bullied by others. It had only been a short time, but everyone's strength had increased by leaps and bounds. That was especially true after their trip to the Darkness Temple. Everyone could sense that their rate of cultivation was much faster than before. This kind of rapid improvement and the feeling of a broad future filled everyone with anticipation. As long as they continued to cultivate like this, they would not need to fear cultivators of other attributes in the future, because the strong were respected. Big Brother Mu, Zhao Jian, and the others are outside the Holy Palace. At this moment, a cultivator quickly walked in from outside the hall and reported what he had seen with a complicated expression. Hearing this, the expressions of everyone in the Holy Palace changed a little. Chapter 6046. However, Zhao Jian had always been a little arrogant because he was originally from a good family. In addition, his strength was relatively outstanding among everyone, so there were many cultivators who followed him. When Huang Futing proposed to follow Di Beichun, Zhao Jian was very dissatisfied and was the first to stand up and oppose. However, at that time, Huang Futing was also very insistent. Everyone hoped to find a better way out, so most people decided to believe in Huang Futing. At that time, Zhao Jian was already very dissatisfied, so when Di Beichun came here, Zhao Jian took his people and left without hesitation. Now that they thought about it, they only felt that Huang Futing was really far-sighted to find a young master like Di Beichun for them. Otherwise, they would still be in the same situation as before and would never be able to hold their heads up high. Zhao Jian's decision at that time was really wrong. If he had been with them at that time, his cultivation would be very high now. Let's go out and have a look. Mu Yangshi's face was slightly gloomy. When the young master and Huang Futing were not here, he was the one who made the decisions in the Dark Sacred Assembly. Zhao Jian looked at the black building in front of him and had a guess in his mind. Ever since he left, he had been waiting to see Huang Futing make a fool of himself. He didn't like Huang Futing because this guy's leadership and influence made him very unhappy. In the past, most cultivators followed him, but since Huang Futing appeared quietly, more people began to believe in Huang Futing. So from then on, he had already been on bad terms with Huang Futing. As the time passed, he didn't see Huang Futing and the others, nor did he see any other cultivators complaining. This made him feel very strange, so he had been paying attention to the situation in Emperor Cloud City. A while ago, he found that Huang Futing and the others seemed to have disappeared, and he couldn't find any trace of them at all. It wasn't until recently that they saw a familiar figure in Emperor Cloud City. They followed them all the way and came here. Seeing the huge and magnificent black building in front of them, everyone's mood was a little complicated. Almost at the moment when he saw the black building, a guess had already appeared in his mind. Could it be that what Di Baichen said back then was true? Was he really going to establish the Dark Sacred Assembly? Such a building seemed to only lack the name of the Dark Society. Just as he was deep in thought, Mu Yangshi had already led this group of cultivators to the entrance. "Zhao Jian, long time no see," Mu Yangshi said slowly with a bright smile on his face. Seeing the familiar Mu Yangshi, Zhao Jian was slightly taken aback as a complicated look flashed across his eyes. This was because he saw a kind of arrogance and confidence on the faces of Mu Yangshi and the others. Perhaps confidence was not a big deal for others, but for dark attribute practitioners like them, confidence was the most extravagant thing. Even when everyone gathered together and he was confident in his own strength, he did not have such confidence that came from his bones. It had only been slightly more than a year. What exactly had happened? Why was everyone in front of him in high spirits? When the cultivators behind Zhao Jian saw this scene, they felt a huge difference in their hearts. Chapter 6047. Zhao Jian could sense the complicated feelings of the people behind him. Even he could not help but feel disappointed, let alone the others. Why are you guys here?" Zhao Jian asked tentatively. The building in front of them looked like a huge sum of money, and the value of it must have far exceeded their imagination. Obviously, Huang Futing and the rest could not have built such a building on their own. After thinking about it carefully, apart from Di Baichen, no one else could have done it. The cultivators in the Darkness Sacred Hall looked at each other when they heard Zhao Jian's words. They pondered how they should respond. Undoubtedly, everyone had complicated feelings towards Zhao Jian and the rest. In the past, they were indeed a group, but ever since they chose to leave that day, many things had changed. Too many things had happened in the past year, and they were no longer the people who needed to cower and hide everywhere. Mu Yangshi was Huang Futing's right-hand man. Now that Di Baichen and Huang Futing were not here, he was naturally in charge of handling this matter. "We're only staying here temporarily." "Staying here?" Zhao Jian raised his eyebrows. How could they be allowed to stay in such a building? However, Mu Yangshi did not seem to hear the question in his question at all. He only nodded calmly, as if he had no intention of talking to him. There was silence. Both parties were silent, and the atmosphere was extremely awkward. "Are you still following young Master D?" "That's right." Mu Yangshi nodded. He felt proud from the bottom of his heart when he mentioned Di Baichen. Young Master D was a godlike existence in their hearts. If they had not made this decision back then, they would still be like Zhao Jian and the rest, drifting around without a fixed place to stay. Zhao Jian's heart sank. In fact, he already knew the answer long ago. Initially, he thought that Di Baichen, as the husband of the Saintess of Light, would never help a dark attribute cultivator, even if he was a dark attribute cultivator himself. He had been waiting for the news that the Holy Assembly had captured Huang Futing and the rest. Although it was a pity to him, it at least proved that he had made a wise decision. If he had not brought everyone away, they would have been wiped out. However, he had waited for so long without receiving any news. From then on, he had already guessed some things. And now, when he saw everyone appear here again with confident smiles on their faces, he felt that he might have missed out on something very important. "Big Brother Mu, what are you doing here? I feel that your cultivation has improved a lot." "That's right. How did your cultivation increase so much?" While Zhao Jian was hesitating, the others couldn't help but voice their doubts. They were both darkness attribute cultivators. Back then, they had always wanted to improve their cultivation, but they couldn't find a way to cultivate the darkness attribute. Although he had been cultivating ever since he left, the speed of his improvement was extremely slow. However, just by standing there, they could clearly feel that the auras of Mu Yangshi and the others were much stronger than before. Chapter 6048. Faced with the curious questions from the people behind Zhao Jian, the cultivators in the sacred assembly remained silent. Now that the dark sacred assembly was about to be established, they did not want to complicate matters before that. Back then, when Zhao Jian chose to leave, it proved that they had chosen another path. If they were to reveal this matter now, they would not be able to accept it if something went wrong and affected the young lord. "We've just been cultivating," Mu Yangshi said slowly. "We've been cultivating too, but your aura is much stronger than ours now. Could it be that you found the cultivation method of the dark attribute? Or did young Lord D tell you the method that he knows?" Zhao Jian pretended to be innocent and asked his doubts. He felt that a brand new path had appeared in front of him. No matter what, he had to get to the bottom of this matter today. Back then, most of the people here could not be compared to him. However, in just a year's time, these people's cultivation had surpassed his. How could he accept this? It was too late to regret what had happened in the past. The most important thing for him now was to find a way to increase his strength. Obviously, even if it was Huang Futing, it was impossible for him to find the cultivation method. The only possibility was Di Beichun. This was because among the known dark attribute cultivators, Di Beichun was undoubtedly the most outstanding one. He did not seem to be affected at all, and his cultivation had never fallen behind. Previously, we went to the ancient battlefield to train and obtain some opportunities there. That's why everyone's strength has increased, Mu Yangshi answered, avoiding the main point and dwelling on the trivial. Seeing that Mu Yangshi did not seem to want to talk to him, Zhao Jian was annoyed. "So you went to the ancient battlefield. That's amazing." Zhao Jian thought for a moment and said directly, "Mu Yangshi, I'd like to meet young Lord D. Can you introduce me?" Hearing that, Mu Yangshi frowned. "Zhao Jian, have you forgotten how you spoke to young Lord back then?" He remembered clearly that Zhao Jian was not polite at all back then. He even said that everything that Di Beichun did was a lie. The situation back then was very ugly. If it was not for Huang Futing, who stabilized the situation, they might not be where they were today. Back then, Zhao Jian didn't hold back at all when he left. Does he want to come back? How can there be such a cheap thing? He had always been conceited and arrogant, thinking that he was great. In my opinion, he must be regretting it now. If he hadn't gone against big brother Huangfu, he wouldn't have fallen to such a state now. Zhao Jian's face gradually turned ugly as he listened to everyone's discussion. Indeed, he regretted his actions back then. Now that the Di family's reputation had soared, it seemed that Ozha was about to surpass the other families. Although he didn't understand why Di Beichun wanted to help them, since he had done so, those who followed him were blessed. I know that I was wrong in the past. Considering our past relationship, can you introduce me to him? Zhao Jian lowered his voice. Even if he was faced with everyone's questioning and mocking gazes, he didn't care. Chapter 6049. Looking at Zhao Jian's humble appearance, a trace of hesitation flashed in Mu Yangshi's eyes. The current Zhao Jian was obviously very different from before. In fact, even he couldn't help but feel that it was a pity. If Zhao Jian hadn't been so impulsive back then, he should be very strong now. He would become the person second only to Huang Futing in the Dark Sacred Assembly. Mu Yangshi's second-in-command position would also belong to him. Should he agree or not? The young master was already very busy. In order to establish the Dark Sacred Assembly, he had already spent a lot of effort. He didn't know if the young master would be willing to see Zhao Jian again. If this would make the young master feel troubled, then he would rather not agree. Mu Yangshi, it's just a referral. Aren't you too stingy if you're not willing? Yeah, our friendship back then was pretty good. Now that you're doing well, you're ignoring us. Isn't that too realistic? Are you looking down on us because you're doing well? The cultivators behind Zhao Jian were all dissatisfied. Right now, they were envious of Mu Yangshi and the others from the bottom of their hearts. If they could also obtain a way to increase their strength, if they had such strong strength now, then their lives wouldn't be so difficult. There was a kind of loss. People like them had unknowingly been freed from their predicament, but they were still here and hadn't changed. Equals, that's not what we meant. Then what do you mean? Zhao Jian's face also became gloomy. He had already lowered himself to this extent, but Mu Yangshi still didn't relent. The anger in his heart had long been uncontrollable. If you're not willing to help, then I'll find a way myself. Mu Yangshi, what happened? When Di Beichen and the others returned to the dark sacred assembly from the restaurant, they saw an extremely lively scene in front of them. From afar, they could only see a group of cultivators gathered outside the gate of the sacred assembly. This situation made them very puzzled. Now wasn't the time for the news to spread. Usually, everyone would stay in the sacred assembly and rarely come out. At this moment, everyone was gathered outside the door. It was a huge commotion, and it was easy to attract the attention of others. The sudden voice immediately attracted everyone's attention. Mu Yangshi and the others all looked at Di Beichun and Bailey Hongzhuang respectfully and bowed. "Young master, madam." Di Beichun and the others hastened their footsteps. Huang Futing, who originally thought that someone was looking for trouble, had a complicated expression when he saw Zhao Jian and the other familiar figures. "Zhao Jian, what are you doing here?" When he saw Huang Futing again, Zhao Jian's expression changed slightly. His malicious eyes were filled with resentment. If it wasn't for Huang Futing, he might not have made such an impulsive decision back then. "It's none of your business." Zhao Jian glanced coldly at Huang Futing before turning his gaze to Di Beichen. His expression became warm and ingratiating. "Young Lord Di, long time no see." Looking at the person in front of him, Di Beichen frowned slightly and said to Huang Futing, "Who is he?" Zhao Jian's face instantly flushed red. He heard Huang Futing say, "He's Zhao Jian." "Zhao Jian?" Huang Futing nodded. "He's the one who questioned you and madam back then and left with his men." Chapter 6050. The calm words that came out of Di Beichen's mouth instantly became extremely lethal. Zhao Jian's face was still maintaining that fawning smile, but gradually, that smile could no longer be maintained. Contempt. This was utter contempt. Master. The male master really doesn't have any impression of unimportant people. Xiaohei could not help but say. This was too much of a slap in the face. Zhao Jian appeared here at this moment. Even if he didn't say his motive, it could be seen from his expression that he regretted his original decision. So now he wanted to please Di Beichun and rejoin the team. However, a few simple words from Di Beichun directly blocked the other party's path. Hearing Xiaohei's words, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but chuckle. This little fellow's skills were still too shallow. According to her understanding of Di Beichun, he would definitely not forget Zhao Jian. He must have said that on purpose. She still remembered clearly that when Zhao Jian and the rest left, Di Beichun was worried that Zhao Jian and the rest would cause trouble, and hence, he paid attention to them for a period of time. However, after everyone went to the ancient battlefield, no one paid attention to this anymore. This was because this fellow had disappeared for a long time. After not seeing him for such a long time, who knew when he would fall? Who would have thought that just when everyone had almost forgotten about him, this fellow would suddenly appear again? Huang Futing noticed that Zhao Jian's expression was getting uglier and felt that it was very interesting. He also did not believe that the young master's memory would be so bad. This was because during the time he spent with the young master, he was very clear about the young master's photographic memory. Although Zhao Jian was nothing in the young master's heart, the incident back then was not a small matter. The young master could not possibly forget. He said that on purpose to tease Zhao Jian. "Young Master Di, I'm here today because I have something to say to you." Although Zhao Jian felt that he had lost face, Di Beichun was his only hope right now. If he missed this opportunity, he would not have the chance to rise again in the future. Hence, no matter what, he could not let go of this opportunity. "Say it," Di Beichun said. "Here." Zhao Jian was stunned. His words were not suitable for everyone to hear. "What's the problem?" Di Beichun asked. Looking at Di Beichun's matter-of-fact expression, Zhao Jian only felt that it was not right to say it, but it was also not right to not say it. If he said these words in front of so many people, Wouldn't he become a joke in the eyes of everyone in the future? Young Master D, may I have a word with you? Zhao Jian lowered his voice and looked awkward. If you want to say it, then say it. I still have things to do. Di Bei Chun turned around. His clear and handsome face revealed an indifference that kept people at a distance of 1,000 miles, making him appear even more noble and threatening. Seeing that Di Bei Chun did not hesitate to walk into the Holy Light Assembly, Zhao Jian could not help but feel anxious. He understood that what he had done in the past had indeed offended Di Bei Chun. Now, it was reasonable for Di Bei Chun to take him down a notch. Young Master Di, it was indeed my fault in the past. I hope that you can forgive me and give me a chance. At the same time, the group of cultivators behind Zhao Jian agreed. Young Master D, it was our fault in the past. Please forgive us. We swear to be loyal to you in the future. We will never betray you. Chapter 6051. Please enter the text. Please note, according to the relevant laws and regulations of the country, please do not upload any pornographic, vulgar, political, or other illegal content. We will review and handle it according to the laws and regulations and report it. Hearing Zhao Jian's words, no one present was surprised at all. Wasn't the reason why he appeared here now so that he could join them again? When the Dark Sacred Assembly is established in the future, you can register as a member. Di Beichun's expression was calm, and the coldness in his eyes never dissipated. The Dark Sacred Assembly was the gathering place for all Dark Attribute cultivators, just like how every Attribute cultivator would become a member of a corresponding Attribute guild. Zhao Jian and the others were Dark Attribute, so it was reasonable for them to become members of the Dark Sacred Assembly. However, these people present were the backbone of the Dark Sacred Assembly. In the future, the Dark Sacred Assembly would spread throughout the entire Upper Realm, and many branch presidents and deacons would be selected from these people. This was because they were elders of the Light Sacred Assembly. After experiencing so many things coupled with the contract they had signed, these people were trustworthy enough. These elders and members like Zhao Jian were two completely different situations. Are you really going to establish the Dark Sacred Assembly? Zhao Jian was slightly stunned. Although this idea had appeared in his mind long ago, when Di Beichun really mentioned it, he could not help but be shocked. The Dark Sacred Assembly was the dream of many of them. Usually, when they were daydreaming, they could not help but imagine the appearance of this day. However, now that someone was really planning to do it, how shocking was this? No one can say when it will be established in the future, Huang Futing said. Huang Futing said, if you can really wait until that day comes, then you can become a member. After Zhao Jian came back to his senses, he heard Huang Futing's words and could not help but ask, then why are all of you together now? Can't we join too? Even if he did not know what Di Beichun and the others were planning, he knew that Huang Futing and the others had benefited a lot from Di Beichun. If they could join now, they could improve their current lives even faster. In the past year, they had been very poor, and it was difficult to even find a stable place. No, Di Beichun left a cold sentence and walked directly into the Dark Sacred Assembly. Everyone had their own choices. If they made the wrong choice, they would have to pay the price. He had chosen all the paths himself, and he should bear the consequences of his actions. No, these two words were like a bucket of cold water that was poured over Zhao Jian's head. Even the cultivators behind him felt a chill run down their spines. Young Master D. Zhao Jian was still unwilling to give up, but Di Beichun did not give him a chance to continue speaking. He walked straight into the Sacred Assembly. Seeing this, Zhao Jian also wanted to follow, but Huang Futing and the others directly blocked him at the door. Young Master has already made things very clear. Don't waste your time here. Huang Futing blocked Zhao Jian. As long as it was someone the young lord did not want to see, they would not let him appear in front of the young lord. Are you trying to take revenge on purpose? Zhao Jian looked at Huang Futing coldly, his voice cold. Huang Futing chuckled. I've never treated you as an opponent. Bang! The doors of the darkness sanctum closed, shutting Zhao Jian and the others out. Young lord, will Zhao Jian be trouble? Mu Yangshi's face was filled with worry. It was a critical moment now. If something went wrong at this time, wouldn't it be troublesome? Chapter 6052. Please enter the text. Please note, according to the requirements of the relevant laws and regulations of the country, please do not upload any pornographic, vulgar, political, or other illegal content. We will review and handle it according to the laws and regulations and report it. Once the Dark Sacred Assembly is established, trouble is inevitable. I hope that everyone is mentally prepared. No matter what kind of criticism and attacks we face, we must persist in our beliefs and not waver. D. Baichen's gaze swept across everyone with a serious and solemn expression. Hundreds of years ago, darkness attribute cultivators once caused a catastrophe in the upper realm. This caused everyone to have a deep misunderstanding of us. Although what happened back then had nothing to do with us, this is still a responsibility that we can't avoid. All pioneering works will definitely be criticized in the beginning, but as long as we succeed, many darkness attribute cultivators will find a home. We don't even have to worry about how our future generations will survive after awakening the darkness attribute. I want to know if you have this awareness. If not, you can choose to leave now. Every word D. Baichen said seemed to explode in everyone's hearts. In fact, they had been thinking more about the various benefits after the Dark Sacred Assembly was established. However, the problems that they might encounter when the Dark Sacred Assembly was established had been deliberately ignored by everyone. After D. Baichen's reminder, they also understood that before they could taste the fruits of victory, they would probably experience a very tragic scene. Everyone fell into silence, but no one chose to leave. Young Master, don't worry. We've long been prepared to die. No matter what happens, our firm beliefs will not change. As one of the cultivators stood out and voiced his opinion, the other cultivators also expressed their opinions one after another. Usually, we've always been looked down upon by everyone because of our attributes. It's even difficult for us to be upright. Only after following the young master did I find a new direction in life. Instead of dragging out a feeble existence, it's better to fight. I believe that if we follow the young master, we'll definitely succeed. But even if we fail, we won't have any complaints. Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze swept across everyone. They were clearly different faces, but everyone's expressions were so similar. Courage, struggle, indomitable, and fearless courage. It was as if nothing could break their morale. They were like the rising sun, unstoppable. Feeling the hope and passion from everyone, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but be affected by such emotions. Establishing the Dark Sacred Assembly was a pioneering work. Once it succeeded, he would change the structure of the upper realm. Huang Futing and Mu Yangshi looked at each other. They did not speak first because they wanted to see everyone's thoughts. Now that everyone was so determined, they were completely relieved. Di Baichen looked at everyone's performance with satisfaction, and his voice was a little more gentle. Since everyone is mentally prepared, don't be afraid of the risk. I will choose a suitable date. Within this month, the Dark Sacred Assembly will appear before the eyes of the world. Established. 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 Everyone could not help but raise their hands and cheer. This was a day that they were looking forward to. It was also a day of violent storms, but they were not afraid. The storm would definitely come, but they were ready at any time. Chapter 6053. After being chased out of the door, Zhao Jian's expression was extremely gloomy. Usually, it was fine to receive such treatment from other people. However, when faced with cultivators of the same dark attribute, he was also treated with such disdain. This was simply too aggrieving. Di Baichen clearly remembered everything that had happened before. Initially, he did not understand, but now, he completely understood. This fellow was simply playing with him. We really made the wrong decision back then. If we had not left back then, we would not have ended up in this state now. I see that their strength has increased by more than just a little compared to before. Young Master D definitely has the cultivation method of the dark attribute, and has even told everyone, if we want to blame someone, we can only blame ourselves for being blind. We did not cherish such a good opportunity in front of us. Now, it's too late to regret. Everyone sighed. Previously, they did not know about this situation. Without comparison, there would be no harm. Now that they had seen it for themselves, the difference in their hearts could be imagined. Initially, everyone was in the same situation. Now, they had been left far behind. One could imagine that in another 1 or 2 years, this difference would be infinitely magnified. Zhao Jian, who was already in a terrible mood, heard everyone's discussion. He felt ashamed and angry at the same time. Were these fellows trying to push all the blame onto him? Damned Huang Futing. This is all because of him. Zhao Jian gritted his teeth. His eyes were filled with hatred and jealousy. This matter must be Huang Futing's doing. He doesn't want us to go in at all. Zhao Jian, what should we do now? Even though everyone was full of resentment towards Zhao Jian, at a time like this, there was no use in complaining. Finding a solution was the most important thing. Why don't we try to beg young Master D again? I think we should go and ask Huang Futing. Based on young Master D's performance just now, we can see that he values Huang Futing very much. If he's willing to speak up for us, our chances of winning will be much higher. Following the words of a cultivator, Zhao Jian's face was as gloomy as water. His dark eyes stared fixedly at the person who had spoken. The cold air in his eyes seemed to be able to freeze the person in an instant. The man was stunned. He also realized that he had said something wrong. To Zhao Jian, begging Huang Futing was probably the hardest thing to accept, even though it seemed like a very good idea to everyone else. I don't want to hear such words from you again. The man fell silent. No matter how unwilling he was, he had no other choice. Now, if he were to give up on this place, he would be the only one left. He really didn't know where to go. It's impossible for Huang Futing to help us. It's useless even if you beg him. Zhao Jian's voice was cold. Don't think that he would be so kind. Did you see him say anything for us from the start? Everyone lowered their eyes, their faces filled with disappointment. Since Huang Futing is so heartless, then we'll make them suffer. A ruthless look surfaced in Zhao Jian's eyes. They were so poor now. How could they watch Huang Futing and the others live happily? If they were going to die, they would die together. Chapter 6054. How could it be so easy to establish a dark sacred assembly? Zhao Jian chuckled. Even if Di Beichun is rich, this matter can't be solved with money alone. The entire upper realm will not allow the dark sacred assembly to be established. Furthermore, it's not a dark guild, but a dark sacred assembly. This is obviously a provocation to the light sacred assembly. I think it's a good thing that we haven't joined yet. When the time comes, once the major forces object, they might just destroy this place. If we lose our lives, what's the point of being proud for a short while? After calming down, Zhao Jian quickly understood the crux of the matter. Di Beichun and the others were definitely preparing for this matter. Moreover, they had even prepared a base of operations. It wouldn't be long before the actual establishment of the Dark Sacred Assembly. Such an action might sound hot-blooded, but thinking about it carefully, the pressure they would have to bear was not something ordinary people could bear. Hearing Zhao Jian's words, everyone present was slightly stunned. After thinking about it carefully, they felt that what he said made sense. That's right. If the people from the major guilds come looking for trouble, they won't be able to resist at all. Even if they have the D family's protection, I'm afraid it'll be very difficult, right? The D family already has enemies. I feel that this matter won't be so easy to succeed. Everyone looked at each other. If this matter were to spread, everyone would think that Di Beichun was a madman. Even they couldn't understand why Di Beichun would take such a huge risk to do such a thing. If he wasn't careful, not only would he lose his life, but he would also implicate the entire D family. Zhao Jian's gaze swept across everyone's faces. After noticing that everyone's resentment had lessened, he felt a lot more at ease. Zhao Jian, are you saying that you're going to ruin this matter? A man frowned as he looked at Zhao Jian. Zhao Jian raised his eyebrows and looked into the distance with a smug expression. Everyone knows about the enmity between the D family, the Xiao family, and the Jun family. I heard that the Xiao family and the Jun family are now at a disadvantage. However, if we tell them this news, As long as they take the opportunity to do something, they might be able to turn the tables. At that time, the ones with a headache will be Di Beichen and Huang Futing. When he thought of Huang Futing's complacent look just now, he couldn't help but feel hatred. Why did this damned fellow have to live better than him? He wanted Huang Futing to live a miserable life. Just as Zhao Jian was feeling smug, he realized that there was no one around him who agreed with him. When he turned around, he realized that everyone was looking at him with complicated gazes. For a moment, he felt a little apprehensive and said in a daze, "Why are you all looking at me like that?" "Zhao Jian, I really didn't expect you to have such thoughts." The man's eyes were filled with disappointment, as if he did not expect that the person he had followed for so long would have such thoughts. The establishment of the Dark Sacred Assembly is beneficial to all of us. Even if young Master D hasn't accepted us yet, he said that if the Dark Sacred Assembly is established, we can also become a member. With his status, there is no need for him to do so much. However, in order for us, who were of the dark element, to be able to live openly, he had to bear and sacrifice so much. To any darkness attribute cultivator, he was a great benefactor. Yet, you actually want to harm him and prevent the Dark Sacred Assembly from being established. Chapter 6055. He was not the only one. Everyone else looked at Zhao Jian in disbelief as well. In the past, when they followed Zhao Jian, it was because Zhao Jian was also a very idealistic person. Although he was not on good terms with Huang Futing back then, he was also working hard to change everyone's situation. Huang Futing came from a big family, while Zhao Jian came from a humble background. Everyone thought that they had more in common with him, which was why they had been following him. However, they did not know when it started, but they realized that Zhao Jian had changed. He was no longer the same person as before. Once the Dark Sacred Assembly is established, it'll be of great help to all of us. Such thoughts shouldn't exist at all. Zhao Jian, you're no longer the person we trusted in the past. Everyone shook their heads. Their feelings were extremely complicated. Even when they were rejected previously, they had never felt so disappointed before. It turned out that the person they had always trusted was so narrow-minded. Noticing everyone's expressions, Zhao Jian could not help but panic. He quickly waved his hand and explained, "It's not what you think it is. Listen to me. You don't have to say any more. I think our thoughts have changed. I'll take my leave first." The man waved his hand. He did not want to listen to Zhao Jian's excuses anymore. They had been together for so many years, so they knew the latter very well. Whether it was his gaze or his tone, it proved that Zhao Jian was serious about everything that he said earlier. The other cultivators wanted to leave, but they did not have the courage to do so alone. Now that everyone else was leaving, how could they hesitate at all? Zhao Jian stood on the spot in a daze. He felt as if he had been struck by lightning as he watched everyone leave. He wanted to ask everyone to stay, but he could not make a sound when he opened his mouth. This was because even he did not know how to explain everything. After Bailey Hongzhuang understood Di Beichen's plan, she did not hesitate and quickly headed to the Holy Light Assembly. Before the Dark Sacred Assembly was established, she had to figure out the Holy Light Assembly's thoughts. She knew that the Holy Light Assembly would definitely not like the Dark Sacred Assembly. However, it had been such a long time after all. Perhaps it was not that serious anymore. Of course, if the Holy Light Assembly was still so determined on this point, she felt that she had to discuss it with the president. She also had some feelings for the Holy Light Assembly. The president had always been very good to her. When the Jun family and the Shao family joined forces to attack her, the Sacred Assembly even helped her. No matter what, she had the responsibility to deal with these matters properly. If the Holy Light Assembly could not accept it, she could also resign from her position as the Holy Maiden of the Light. At the very least, she could not implicate the Holy Light Assembly. Di Beichen had planned to go with Bailey Hongzhuang because he was worried that something might happen along the way. This matter had a huge impact. One could imagine the president's reaction. If something went wrong, he wouldn't be at ease. However, Bailey Hongzhuang still refused. She believed that the guild leader wasn't that kind of person. Even if it was hard for the president to accept this, he would not do anything that would hurt him. If Di Baichon went, it would be even more dangerous. Coming to the Holy Light Assembly again, looking at the holy building in front of her, Bailey Hongzhuang's lips raised a smile. Chapter 6056. As Bailey Hongzhuang walked into the Holy Light Assembly, all eyes fell on her with worship and surprise. The Holy Maiden of Light. That's the Holy Maiden of Light. I didn't expect us to be so lucky to have the opportunity to see the Holy Maiden of Light. She is really as beautiful as the rumors say. She is unforgettable. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced around the hall before walking towards the stairs. The attendant rushed to Bailey Hongzhuang's side and said respectfully, "Holy Maiden, are you going to see the president?" "Yes." Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly, the corners of her lips raised in a gentle arc. The attendant stared blankly at the flawless face in front of him. This spring-like smile seemed to be directly reflected in his heart, and he couldn't recover his senses for a while. Seeing that the attendant didn't respond, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help waving her hand in front of him. "The president should be here, right?" "Yes, yes." The attendant came back to his senses, his face flushed with embarrassment and nervousness. "But the president is now meeting a guest. I'll go and inform him first." "Okay." As soon as the voice fell, the attendant rushed up and disappeared in a blink of an eye. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help chuckling. This young man was really interesting. Bailey Hongzhuang walked into the room exclusive to the Holy Maiden of Light. Since the president was meeting a guest, she naturally wouldn't disturb him. It wouldn't be too late to see the president after the guest left. When Lu Hongwei heard that Bailey Hongzhuang had come, his eyes also lit up, and he looked at the man behind him with a smile. "Young Master Song, you are really lucky. The Holy Maiden happened to come to the guild today." Song Langtian breathed a sigh of relief after hearing this, and said with a smile, "Zhu Qing, the Holy Maiden's medical skills are extremely outstanding. With the enhancement of the Holy Maiden's crystal, I believe your problem will be solved." "I hope so." Song Zhuqing's lips curled into a smile, but it could still be seen from his gloomy eyes that he was not too optimistic. In fact, he had already given up hope, but his father was unwilling to give up and took him everywhere to seek medical treatment. Finally, they came to the Holy Light Assembly. The repeated disappointments made him feel very frustrated. Every time he saw a doctor, he was full of expectations, but the cruel reality beat him back again and again. He didn't want to be disappointed anymore, especially when he saw his father's tiredness because of him. He felt even more apologetic. Song Langtian already knew from Song Zhuqing's attitude that he didn't have much expectation, but he didn't think it was a bad thing to have such an attitude. The greater the hope, the greater the disappointment. Even he was unable to maintain such a calm state of mind because this was truly too torturous. Originally, he also had doubts about Bailey Hongzhuang's medical skills, but later, various situations showed that Bailey Hongzhuang might be the one with the best medical skills. So today, he had the cheek to bring Song Zhuqing here to seek medical treatment. In fact, he knew very well that Bailey Hongzhuang was not in the Holy Light Assembly at all, but he felt that it was not appropriate to go directly to the D family. After thinking about it, the only way was to ask President Liu to take them to the D family together. After all, he and President Liu had been friends for many years. Chapter 6057. Go and invite the Holy Maiden over. Yes, Bailey Hongzhuang had just entered the room. She thought it would take a while to wait for the president's guest to leave, but she didn't expect the waiter to come so soon. "Holy Maiden, the president invites you over." Bailey Hongzhuang stood up and asked in confusion, "The guest has left." "No." The waiter shook his head. "The president should want to introduce her to you." As Bailey Hongzhuang walked into the president's office, she found that there were two other figures in the room besides President Liu. She felt very familiar with the elder in front of her. She seemed to have seen him at the succession ceremony of the Holy Maiden of Light, and the other young man's face was somewhat similar to him. If there was no accident, the two should be father and son. While Bailey Hongzhuang was sizing him up, the other party was also sizing her up. "Holy Maiden of Light, I haven't seen you for a long time since I saw you at the succession ceremony. Song Lang Tian smiled, his deep eyes full of appreciation. During this trip to the ancient battlefield, Bailey Hongzhuang's reputation had become more and more resounding, not only because of her identity as the Holy Maiden of Light, but also because of her own strength. Hongzhuang, this is President Song of the Metal Attribute Guild. He once came to see your succession ceremony, but there were too many people at that time, so your impression may not be very clear. Lu Hongwei saw that Bailey Hongzhuang was a little puzzled, so he explained aloud. Greetings, President Song. Bailey Hongzhuang cupped her hands, smiling elegantly like a lotus, but her heart was a little complicated. She didn't expect to see the president of the other attributes today. Maybe it won't be long before they meet on the battlefield. Holy Maiden is too polite. Song Lang Tian cupped his hands. In fact, we came here today to ask for a favor. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang subconsciously looked at Lu Hongwei. Shouldn't the president be the one asking for a favor? Lu Hongwei smiled faintly. President Song's son was seriously injured by a monster beast when he was training previously. He was poisoned with a very strange poison, so his cultivation couldn't progress. Over the years, they have thought of many ways, but they have never been able to solve it. Your medical skills have always been recognized, so they want to see if you have any ideas. I see. Bailey Hongzhuang came to a realization. She turned to look at Song Zhuqing again. No wonder she felt that he was unhappy when she first saw him. This was the first time Song Zhuqing had met Bailey Hongzhuang. Over the past few years, because his health had not improved, he had gradually changed from a cheerful personality to a depressed one. Back then, the succession ceremony had been a great event in the upper realm, but he hadn't come to observe it. This was because he didn't want to see his former friends and competitors. He didn't want to see everyone's sympathetic or mocking gazes. This would make him feel very uncomfortable. He had long heard of Bailey Hongzhuang's beauty, but he did not pay much attention to it. After all, with her identity as the Saint of Light, the rumors were always exaggerated. Everyone's evaluation of Xiao Shou was the same. As far as he was concerned, Xiao Shou was indeed a beauty. However, if she were to be described as a devastatingly beautiful woman, then it would be slightly inappropriate. However, the beautiful figure in front of him really made him believe in the word beauty. Chapter 6058. Soon, Song Zhuqing realized that it was impolite for him to keep staring at a woman like this, and immediately retracted his gaze. I've heard a lot about you. Song Lang Tian was still a little worried after noticing Song Zhuqing's look. His son had not yet married and had been focusing on cultivation, but after the setback, he had been depressed. His family also wanted to set a marriage for him, but he was not interested in anyone, which gave them a headache. If it was someone else, he would definitely be happy to see Song Zhuqing's admiration, but the other party was the Holy Maiden of Light. Fortunately, Song Zhuqing only showed a little amazement, which made him feel at ease. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. It turns out to be young Master Song. Nice to meet you. Looking at the gentle and elegant Bailey Hongzhuang, a rare smile appeared on Song Zhuqing's face. He had forgotten how long it had been since he last smiled. It seemed that since the incident at the beginning, he had no effect anymore. However, in the face of such a beauty, it didn't seem appropriate to show her that face again. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at President Lu, and then said, "How about I try to treat him?" Song Lang Tian nodded immediately, his face full of enthusiasm. "Holy Maiden, I'll have to trouble you then." Bailey Hongzhuang put her hand on Song Zhuqing's wrist to feel his pulse. She was also curious about what kind of demonic beast Song Zhuqing had been injured by that it would cause such a serious hidden disease. If the doctors in the upper realm couldn't cure him, then this poison was really not simple. As she felt his pulse, she suddenly discovered the strangeness in Song Zhuqing's body. Her eyebrows wrinkled slightly, and there was a trace of doubt and faintly surprise on her delicate face. Bailey Hongzhuang was aghast. She didn't expect Song Zhuqing to be poisoned with such a poison. There was silence in the room. Song Lang Tian held his breath and didn't dare to make a sound, for fear that he would affect Bailey Hongzhuang's diagnosis and treatment. This was the only hope they could think of. If even Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't cure her, then Song Zhuqing really had no hope in this life. When Song Langtian noticed Bailey Hongzhuang's gradually dignified expression, his heart sank. It seemed that the situation was not optimistic. Seeing this, Lu Hongwei wanted to comfort Song Langtian, but after thinking about it, he didn't speak. For this kind of thing, comforting wouldn't work at all. After a long while, Bailey Hongzhuang finally released her hand, but she didn't say anything. "Saintess, is there no cure for my condition?" Song Zhuqing raised his eyes to look at Bailey Hongzhuang. His handsome but pale face was complex and sensitive. Even though he was trying his best not to show his despair, one could still see the hope and fear in his heart from his flickering eyes. Looking at Song Zhuqing like this, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart also sighed. This kind of thing was indeed a huge blow to a young man in his prime. What's more, Song Zhuqing was also a cultivation genius. Your illness is indeed very complicated, and the poison is extremely rare. Bailey Hongzhuang spoke slowly. She had seen a lot of difficult and miscellaneous diseases, and she had mastered many more poisons than ordinary doctors, but it was really the first time she had encountered Song Zhuqing's poison. As soon as these words came out, everyone's heart trembled. Song Langtian and Song Zhuqing couldn't hide the disappointment on their faces. It seemed that this was really an incurable disease. Chapter 6059. Although I have never seen this poison, I have some judgments in my heart. If you don't mind, I can give it a try. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Song Zhuqing seriously. If it were before, she might not have much confidence in the face of such a strange poison. Even if she wanted to study it, she was afraid it would take a lot of time. Just like when she studied the cursed body in her previous life, she also spent a lot of energy and time. In the current situation, she obviously didn't have much time to study this in detail. After all, the Dark Sacred Assembly was about to be established, and there were too many things to deal with. However, since she worshipped Grandma Hua as her master, her medical skills had become better and better. Many problems that were very difficult to solve in the past had now become much simpler. Many medicinal materials in the immortal domain were not available in the upper realm, which meant that the diseases that could not be solved in the upper realm were likely to be solved in the immortal domain. The crisp and pleasant voice came into the ears of Song Zhuqing and others like the sound of nature. All three of them were sluggish for a moment, and after noticing each other's stunned expressions, they also understood that the voice they heard was not wrong. Song Zhuqing's breathing became rapid. He stared at Bailey Hongzhuang closely and asked cautiously, "Holy Maiden, do you mean there may be a way to cure this poison?" Although it was just a sentence of try, it was already very rare for Song Zhuqing, because almost none of the doctors he had seen before had said this word. Everyone shook their heads and sighed, advising him to find someone better. However, now Bailey Hongzhuang actually said that he could give it a try. At least there was still a glimmer of hope. "Holy Maiden, do you have a clue?" Song Langtian couldn't care less about maintaining the image of an elder at the moment. He only had one son, and he was almost worried about this matter. If Bailey Hongzhuang really had a way, she would be their savior. Lu Hongwei was also a little surprised and a little worried at the same time. Song Langtian and the others had been disappointed for too long. At this moment, they were given hope. If it still couldn't be cured, the blow would be even greater. "Hongzhuang, do you really have a way?" Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. "This poison is indeed very strange, but my medical skills have improved a little recently. After I do some research, I might be able to find a way." She already had some ideas in her mind. However, if she wanted to treat this illness, she still had to make a trip to the abandoned immortal forest. Because the herbs she needed were not available in the upper realm, and coincidentally, she did not have them in her chaos ring, so she could only go to the abandoned immortal forest to pick them. "Saintess, I'll have to trouble you then." Song Longtian's hands trembled slightly as he pulled Bailey Hongzhuang. As a father, he couldn't bear to see his son so dejected. "As long as you can cure Zhuqing, no matter what you need me to do, I will do it." "Guild leader Song, you're too polite." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly, but her eyes were exceptionally bright. "If I can cure young Master Song, I hope that you can grant me a wish in the future. What wish? Song Zhuqing asked. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. No emotion could be seen on her delicate and beautiful face. I don't know yet. When I have something to ask of you in the future, I hope you can do me a favor. Chapter 6060. Seeing that Song Langtian agreed to her request without hesitation, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up. Perhaps even God was helping them. It was not difficult for her to help with the diagnosis and treatment, but it would be much easier if there was less resistance when the Dark Sacred Assembly was established. In Song Langtian's view, this request was not a request at all. As long as Bailey Hongzhuang cured Zhuqing, they would never refuse to help whenever she needed help in the future. This so-called request was simply a special help, which made him think more highly of Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang sat down, her red lips slightly opened. This poison is indeed very rare. I already have some ideas in my mind, but before that, I need to collect young Master Song's blood so that I can study it better. No problem. Song Zhuqing nodded without hesitation. As long as there was hope to change this situation, he was willing to do anything. I will study it in my room for the next few days. I'm afraid it will take some time. President Song and young Master Song may have to stay here for a few more days. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. She needed to go to the abandoned immortal forest to find medicinal herbs, which would take a long time. What's more, she didn't intend to ask her master directly. If she could make the antidote herself, it would undoubtedly be the best. Song Langtian and Bailey Hongzhuang thought that they would have to stay here for a long time, but when they heard Bailey Hongzhuang say that it would only take a few days, they were a little puzzled. This poison was so difficult to detoxify. Could it be that it would only take a few days? Bailey Hongzhuang was actually a little helpless. If possible, the longer the better, but there were still many things to do now, so naturally there was no time to delay this. We have long been prepared for a long time to seek medical treatment. Holy Maiden, you don't have to worry about it. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded lightly. In that case, I will go back to my room to study it. You don't have to pay attention to me these few days. I will naturally come out after I study it. At this time, Bailey Hongzhuang had already collected the blood. All right. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang leave directly, Lu Hongwei had some doubts in his heart. He originally wanted to ask Hongzhuang why she came here today, but given the current situation, he decided not to ask for the time being. After returning to the house, Bailey Hongzhuang went to the abandoned immortal forest without hesitation. She had to pick the herbs as soon as possible, and it would take some time to find a solution. Granny Hua saw that Bailey Hongzhuang went straight to the forest to look for herbs after she arrived. She didn't say anything. Her disciple always had her own ideas. Even though she was his master, she wouldn't restrict him too much. What she liked the most was Bailey Hongzhuang's character. When she encountered a problem, she would not ask her first, but would think of a way to solve it. If she really encountered something that she couldn't solve, she would ask him about some small details. He just had to remind her a little, and she would often be able to figure out a solution on her own. Although this method would waste more time than teaching directly by himself, after a long time, one would understand that this was the best way to learn. In this way, even if he wasn't there in the future, she could still find a way to solve it. After Bailey Hongzhuang left, the atmosphere in the president's office was a bit strange. Chapter 6061. Song Langtian's face was full of disbelief. Until now, he still couldn't believe what had just happened. It's not that I don't believe the Holy Maiden, but this poison is so difficult to detoxify. We have found so many doctors, but none of them have a clue. It's just a few days. Can the girl do it? According to his idea, to crack this strange poison, even if it didn't take 3 to 5 years, it would take at least a year and a half, right? Lu Hongwei spread out his hands. Only Hongzhuang knows about this matter. But with my understanding of her, she has never been a person who talks nonsense. Since she said such a thing, it proves that she should have a way. Anyway, it's just a few days, so just wait with peace of mind. No matter what the result is, she will tell us. Song Zhuqing also spoke up. Father, I believe in the Holy Maiden. For so long, Bailey Hongzhuang was the only doctor who said there was hope. What's more, there had long been rumors that Bailey Hongzhuang was the strongest doctor in the upper realm. Even Dr. Wu was her disciple, so there was no need to say anything else. Maybe for Bailey Hongzhuang, a few days was already a long time. Song Langtian nodded slightly. He hadn't seen Zhu Qing in such high spirits for a long time. Even if they failed in the end, they could still bear it. The sky gradually darkened, and a bright moon hung high in the sky, sprinkling silver-white light. Young master, Madam hasn't come out yet after entering the Holy Assembly. In the restaurant opposite the Holy Assembly, a white figure was sitting by the window, and the bright moonlight sprinkled on him through the window. His back was tall and straight like a pine tree. His temperament was like bamboo, and his ink-black long hair and white robe formed a sharp contrast, making him look more handsome, elegant, and noble. His slender fingers played with the glass, and his eyes turned slightly to look at the white building in front of him, his eyes as deep as a pool. She should be fine. Di Beichen drank the wine in the glass in one gulp. His narrow and handsome eyes narrowed slightly, flashing a fierce light, and his evil and noble face raised a cold arc. If the Radiant Sacred Assembly dared to do anything to Hongzhuang, he would destroy the entire Radiant Sacred Assembly. Huang Futingjing sat at the side. Because the young master was worried about the madam coming here alone, he followed after the madam left. Actually, he understood the young master's feelings very well. Not to mention the young master. Even he couldn't help but worry. What the madam had done this time was too risky. She had crossed the bottom line of the Holy Light Assembly. Once the Radiant Sacred Assembly objected or did something else, things would become complicated. Young master, do you want me to ask around? No need. Di Beichen's expression was calm. Based on his understanding of his wife, even if the Holy Light Assembly really wanted to harm her, it would be impossible for them to subdue her quietly. As long as there was no movement, it meant that there was no battle. However, looking at it from another perspective, this also meant that something unexpected had happened in the Holy Light Assembly. Otherwise, she wouldn't have stayed in there for so long. After Bailey Hongzhuang had brought the medicinal herbs back, she began to study them in her room. These medicinal herbs before her eyes were certainly unfamiliar to cultivators from the upper realm, but she already had a very good understanding of the medicinal properties and characteristics of these medicinal herbs. Chapter 60-62. 7 days. For 7 days, Bailey Hongzhuang had been studying the antidote to the toxin in her room. Even though she already had a certain idea in her heart, she found that the situation was more complicated than she thought when detoxifying the toxin. She took Song Zhuqing's blood, on the one hand, to study the characteristics of the toxin, and, on the other hand, to verify that the antidote she had concocted could remove the toxin. Originally, she had already concocted a bottle of antidote on the 4th day, but she found that the effect was a certain gap from what she expected. The toxin could indeed be controlled, but it could not be completely solved. Therefore, she began to study again, trying to add some medicinal materials and change the quantity of the medicinal materials. It wasn't until the 6th day that she determined the type of medicinal materials, but the dosage still needed to be changed. This seemed to be a very simple matter, but a little difference in the dosage would cause a difference in the effect. She had tried many times, changed many parameters, and constantly improved her antidote. Even though her body was exhausted, she was in a paranoid state and couldn't feel it at all. She just kept trying, and whenever she found a little change, she would record it for a better comparison. President Liu, the Holy Maiden has not moved for 7 days. She should at least come out to eat something, right? Song Langtian kept pacing outside the house. Even though he always felt that this kind of thing would take a year and a half to solve, these 7 days seemed to be particularly long for him. Every day, he looked forward to the door being opened, hoping that Bailey Hongzhuang could bring them good news. Song Zhuqing also looked at the closed door in front of him. In the past few days, he could feel that the movement inside had never stopped. Originally, everyone thought that no one knew what Bailey Hongzhuang was doing after she closed the door, but now no one doubted it anymore. The situation inside might be far more difficult than they thought. Hongzhuang said not to disturb her after going in. In my opinion, we'd better not disturb her. Lu Hongwei's mood was also a bit complicated. He could vaguely guess Bailey Hongzhuang's current state. It was probably not easy. Just as everyone was talking, they heard a rustling sound coming from the house again, and then the door that had been closed suddenly opened. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang again, everyone's eyes changed and their hearts trembled. At this moment, although Bailey Hongzhuang was still breathtakingly beautiful, the dark circles under her eyes and the faint tiredness she revealed told everyone that she had been through a lot these past few days. Without looking away, Bailey Hongzhuang could see the messy room through the gap between the door and the room. Countless herbs and medicine bottles were placed on the table. Each bottle contained a different potion. The entire room was extremely messy, as if there wasn't even a place to stand. It was clearly an extremely messy environment, but it made everyone's hearts tremble. For 7 whole days, Bailey Hongzhuang had been studying here and never stopped. Song Zhuqing had mixed feelings. He felt guilty that Bailey Hongzhuang had worked so hard because of him. "I've developed it." Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a bright smile. Under the contrast of that smile, the entire room seemed to be sprinkled with bright and beautiful sunlight. Chapter 60-63. Looking at the small bottle of potion in Bailey Hongzhuang's hand, the purple potion swayed slightly in the glass bottle, reflecting a crystal-clear light like an amethyst, looking dazzling and dreamy. "This potion could detoxify my poison." Song Zhuqing stared at Bailey Hongzhuang in a daze, his expression a bit sluggish, as if it was hard to believe that this small bottle of potion could solve the poison that had troubled him for so long. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded, her smile as warm and dazzling as the sun. "I have tested it many times. There should be no problem. Why don't you try it?" Lifting her hand gently, Bailey Hongzhuang put the potion in Song Zhuqing's hand with a smile. Song Zhuqing's hand trembled slightly. After being cooped up in the room for such a long time, his skin had become very white. His slender palm was full of bones. It was obviously just a small bottle of potion, but in his hand, it seemed to be as heavy as 1,000 caddies. Song Langtian understood Song Zhuqing's complicated mood, but he was more excited. He believed that the Holy Maiden of Light would never lie about this kind of thing, and lying was meaningless because it would be exposed immediately. If Zhuqing's poison could really be detoxified, then it would be a great surprise for them. "Zhuqing, go and try it." Song Langtian looked at Song Zhuqing excitedly. After waiting for so long, this day finally came. No matter what, he had to give it a try. Hearing his father's voice, Song Zhuqing came back to his senses. He nodded and shifted his gaze from Song Langtian to Bailey Hongzhuang. "Holy Maiden, I'll try it." "Okay." Song Zhuqing left quickly, and Song Langtian couldn't help but leave with him. Only Lu Hongwei stayed in place, looking at Bailey Hongzhuang with a smile. "Hongzhuang, your medical skills are really amazing now." Lu Hongwei sighed in his heart. So many doctors couldn't find a solution, but Bailey Hongzhuang only spent 7 days to develop an antidote. This was too surprising. At the same time, he also understood that this had something to do with Bailey Hongzhuang's efforts. If it was an ordinary person who would research for so long without sleep and rest, to ordinary people, this was simply insane. However, when this kind of thing happened to Bailey Hongzhuang, he didn't think it was an exaggeration because Bailey Hongzhuang was a person who worked so hard that it was hard to imagine. If she hadn't worked hard enough, she wouldn't have been able to dabble in so many aspects. She could even be said to be exquisite in every aspect. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. "Didn't the president always ask me to study medicine? Do you know how to cure the Saintess Crystal now?" Lu Hongwei smiled. "I've already mastered it. The healing power of the Holy Maiden Crystal is really strong. However, young Master Song is poisoned. All he needs is the antidote. Can this medicine really cure his problem?" Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. "Does the president not believe in my ability?" "Of course I believe in you." Lu Hongwei waved his hand. "Who in the entire upper realm doesn't know that your medical skills are the most exquisite?" With that said, Lu Hongwei slowly walked into the room. During the conversation, he noticed that there were some medicinal materials in the room that he seemed to have never seen before. Hong Zhuang, why do I seem to have never seen these medicinal materials before? Lu Hongwei picked up a medicinal material and looked at it carefully, his eyebrows full of doubts. Chapter 60-64. When they first found out that the saint's crystal had a certain effect on treatment, they spent a lot of effort to find out how to use it. As the president, he spent the most time, so even if he didn't know much about most of the herbs, he had seen them before. There were also doctors among the members of the Holy Light Assembly. Under the influence of these doctors, even if he could not name them, he could at least get familiar with them. However, these herbs in front of him were very unfamiliar, as if he had never seen them before. President, you've studied these herbs? Bailey Hongzhuang was a little surprised. She thought that neither President Liu nor President Song were doctors and didn't know much about these herbs, so she didn't hide it. She didn't expect President Liu to see the uniqueness of these herbs at a glance. She couldn't hide it anymore. I only know a little about them. Lu Hongwei smiled faintly, but his gaze was very serious. He could feel that these herbs were a little different just by holding them in his hand. These herbs seemed to be of a higher grade than the spiritual herbs that I usually see. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. President, you have good eyesight. Is this true? Lu Hongwei was slightly stunned. Even if he said so, he couldn't be sure. Just by looking at these herbs, he couldn't help but have this thought. I obtained these spiritual herbs when I was training. From what I know, these spiritual herbs don't seem to be in the upper realm. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved slightly. After the appearance of the ancient battlefield, many people probably already knew that there was a stronger plane above the upper realm. President Liu was so smart, so how could he not know? Moreover, these spiritual herbs came from the immortal domain, so they couldn't be seen in the upper realm. After hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's confirmation, President Liu's eyes were filled with amazement. He suddenly understood some things that he didn't understand. No wonder Mr. Song's poison can't be cured, but you can. It's because you have spiritual herbs that the upper realm doesn't have. He always thought that there must be a way to cure the poison in the world. The reason why it couldn't be cured was because one's ability wasn't enough. Originally, he didn't understand where Bailey Hongzhuang got her confidence from, but now he understood. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled elegantly. I just happen to have these spiritual herbs. After seeing the poison that Mr. Song was afflicted with, I felt that these spiritual herbs might be able to cure it. After several days of research, I found that the effect is indeed feasible. Since these spiritual herbs can't be found in the upper realm, their value must be extremely high. Lu Hongwei's voice was somewhat emotional. Although he didn't directly say it, the meaning was very obvious. Such a precious herb was used to detoxify Song Zhuqing. There was no connection between it all. Other than Bailey Hongzhuang, no one else would do such a thing. 7 whole days. He had probably wasted a lot of medicinal herbs. Medicinal herbs exist for the purpose of saving lives. If we just keep it, it's just a stalk of grass. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was indifferent. These herbs were actually not rare in the immortal region. There were quite a few of them in the abandoned immortal forest. She did not spend too much time and had already harvested quite a lot. The abandoned immortal forest was so rich in herbs, yet it was still rejected by the immortal domain. It could be seen that the immortal domain's land must be even richer. Chapter 60-65. Listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Lu Hongwei's gaze changed slightly, and there was a trace of appreciation and admiration. No wonder Bailey Hongzhuang was destined to be the Holy Maiden of Light. Many people did not have this kind of breadth of mind. After returning to the house, Song Zhuqing couldn't wait to try it. After so long, this was the first antidote he had obtained. The moment he opened his mouth, he hesitated for a moment, but thinking of Bailey Hongzhuang's confident smile, he swallowed the potion without hesitation. Song Langtian had been accompanying Song Zhuqing, and after seeing him drink the potion, he anxiously paid attention to his changes. Song Zhuqing didn't feel any change after drinking the potion, but this situation didn't last long. Suddenly, his whole body seemed to be on fire, and a terrible burning sensation burst out in his body. In just a short moment, Song Zhuqing's face turned as red as a cooked shrimp, showing an extremely painful appearance. Zhuqing, what's the matter with you? The sudden scene was beyond Song Longtian's expectations. Even the president, who is usually calm and collected, was flustered at this moment. Zhuqing, what's the matter with you? I'm going to find the holy maiden. Song Langtian stood up and was about to find Bailey Hongzhuang when he suddenly heard a wah sound. He quickly turned around and saw Song Zhuqing spitting out a mouthful of black blood. The black blood was almost solidified. Unlike the bright red blood, this black blood looked like a poisonous substance, filthy and disgusting. This is poisonous blood? Song Langtian looked at the black blood and immediately understood in his heart. They had always known that there was still residual poison in Song Zhuqing's body, but they couldn't completely remove the poison after thinking of many ways. However, now that Song Zhuqing suddenly vomited, even if he was not a doctor, he understood that this was a good thing. Song Zhuqing leaned limply on the chair, his face pale, and there was still bright red blood hanging from the corners of his lips. Although he was extremely weak, his eyes were blooming with an unprecedented bright brilliance. Father, the poison seems to be really detoxified. Ever since he was poisoned, he had always felt an indescribable pressure lingering in his heart. His entire being was extremely stifled, and even his breathing seemed to be shrouded by the pressure. But now, he felt that his breathing had become very relaxed, which was completely different from the usual situation. Why don't you try circulating your essence energy? Song Langtian looked at Song Zhuqing in surprise, and his breathing quickened. The surprise came too suddenly, and he couldn't believe it. He was only worried that it was fake. That was the real feeling of falling from heaven to hell. Song Zhuqing nodded and carefully circulated her essence energy. When he realized that the trace of origin energy had merged with his dantian, which had been stagnant for a long time, finally gained a trace of strength, he couldn't help but want to cheer. All right, the poison is really gone. Song Zhuqing looked at Song Langtian excitedly, her eyes full of tears. Even if he was a man, he could no longer suppress his emotions at this time. He had waited too long for this day. He had originally thought that his life was over, but now he had actually succeeded. Hearing Song Zhuqing's words, Song Langtian was completely relieved. He couldn't help but burst into tears. God was not too cruel to them. His son had come back to life. Chapter 6066. After detoxifying the poison, Song Zhuqing didn't care about his weak body. He just wanted to thank Bailey Hongzhuang properly. Detoxifying the poison was equivalent to giving him a second chance at life. He could finally cultivate again. As the son of the president, it was the most painful thing for him to become a useless person who couldn't improve his strength. More than once, he felt that he was simply a disgrace to his father. However, in the face of his father's concern and his family's expectations, the pain in his heart was simply indescribable. Especially when he saw his family's disappointment over and over again, but still covered up and comforted him. His heart was bleeding. This time, they really came to the right place. He finally didn't have to see his family sad for him. Even if he started cultivating again now, and his strength had fallen a lot, he didn't care because as long as he could still cultivate, this was already the happiest thing. When Song Zhuqing and Song Langtian returned, they heard the conversation between Bailey Hongzhuang and Lu Hongwei. Only then did they understand why Bailey Hongzhuang was able to detoxify the poison that so many people couldn't detoxify. It turned out that the medicinal herbs used to make the potion were so precious. Medicinal herbs that the upper realm didn't have. Just this point alone, as long as these medicinal herbs were taken to the auction house, they would definitely be sold at a sky-high price. However, Bailey Hongzhuang actually used these medicinal herbs to help him concoct the antidote, and even wasted so much. Song Langtian and Song Zhuqing couldn't help but look at each other. They owed her a big favor. They had thought that Bailey Hongzhuang had not slept or rested for 7 days to find a way to detoxify the poison. They were already very apologetic, but they had never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang had paid far more than them. It was just the first time they met, and they didn't even ask for any compensation. Bailey Hongzhuang had paid so much, which really made them feel ashamed. Holy Maiden. Song Zhuqing slowly walked into the room and looked at the graceful figure with a deep and complicated gaze. The next moment, he bowed deeply. Thank you, Holy Maiden, for saving my life. Looking at Song Zhuqing's actions, Lu Hongwei knew that the medicine concocted by Bailey Hongzhuang was really effective. He was even more amazed. Young Master Song, there's no need to be so polite. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. This poison doesn't actually affect your life, so there's no need to thank me for saving your life. Speaking of which, even she felt that this poison was very unique. It would only suppress the cultivator's cultivation and prevent them from cultivating, but it would not affect their life. If the poisoned person was just an ordinary person, there would be no effect at all. However, Song Zhuqing shook his head. His fair and handsome face was filled with seriousness as he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a deep sense of gratitude. Ever since I was poisoned, I've been like a walking corpse for the past few years. Although I'm not dead, I don't feel like I'm truly alive. Only now have I truly come back to life. So this is a life-saving grace to me. Song Zhuqing's gaze was solemn. Miss Bailey, I will always remember this kindness in my heart. No matter what happens in the future, as long as you need my help, I will never refuse. Looking at Song Zhuqing's serious look, Bailey Hongzhuang understood that this man, who was not much older than her, was an honest and upright person. She didn't say much because this kind of person wouldn't change his mind easily once he had decided on something. What's more, she had something to ask the Metal Guild for help. Chapter 60-67. Her original intention of saving Song Zhuqing was not simple, and a larger part of the reason was because of Song Longtian's identity. In fact, she also understood that after the news of the Dark Sacred Assembly spread out, there would definitely be a lot of opposition. Even if Song Langtian was the president of the Metal Guild, he couldn't completely stop it. However, she believed that the identity of the president still had a certain effect. As long as they could reduce the resistance a little, it would be a success for them. Holy Maiden, thank you so much. Song Longtian's face was full of smiles. Although there had been a lot of smiles on his face in the past few days, it was only this time that it really came from the bottom of his heart. Without the layer of worry that had been lingering in his heart, he felt relaxed all over. It's nothing, Bailey Hongzhuang said. Under the invitation of Song Langtian and Song Zhuqing, Bailey Hongzhuang and Lu Hongwei followed the two to the restaurant for dinner. She understood that if she didn't agree, Song Langtian and Bailey Hongzhuang would feel apologetic. Young Master, Madam has been in there for 7 days, and there is no news until now. Shall we go in and take a look? Huang Futing looked at Di Beichun, who was still maintaining that posture and looking at the Holy Assembly with extreme admiration in his heart. After waiting for so many days in a row, he couldn't hold back anymore. There was no movement for such a long time. If Madam was in danger, wouldn't it be troublesome? Even if the young master was just sitting there calmly and indifferently, with an elegant temperament that seemed otherworldly, he knew that the young master must be more anxious than him. What he admired the most was the young master's temperament. After enduring for so long, he didn't rush out directly to take a look. No hurry, Di Beichun said slowly. She should be delayed by other things. Young master, how did you know? Huang Futing frowned. They had been staying in the restaurant since they came here, and there was no news from the Holy Assembly at all. This situation was impossible to judge at all. Based on my understanding of her, Di Beichun's lips curved slightly. Hongzhuang never did anything unprepared. This time, he insisted on coming because he wanted to set his mind at ease, but he knew that since Hongzhuang dared to come here by herself, it proved that she was confident. There was no movement for so long. Something else must have happened. Upon hearing Di Beichun's words, Huang Futing was also slightly stunned. He had always felt that the young master and madam were a pair with great tacit understanding. Perhaps he was really too anxious? While they were waiting 4 figures suddenly appeared in front of the radiant sacred assembly. "Young master, it's Madam," Huang Futing said excitedly. Di Beichun turned his eyes and looked at the elegant white figure below. His eyes were not as calm as usual, but had a trace of gentleness. "Madam is indeed fine." Huang Futing heaved a sigh of relief. Although he didn't understand what had happened in the past 7 days, since his wife could still talk and laugh, it proved that there really was no problem. "But why is Madam with President Song?" "President Song?" Di Beichun raised an eyebrow. Huang Futing nodded slightly. "The one beside President Liu is President Song. He is the president of the Metal Attribute Guild. I met him once a few years ago. The young man beside him is his son, Song Zhuqing. I heard that he was once poisoned, causing his cultivation to be unable to progress. I didn't expect to see him here." Chapter 60-68. So that's how it is? Huang Futing was a little puzzled. Just now, he clearly felt that the atmosphere was inexplicably low, but after he finished his introduction, it suddenly became relaxed again. What exactly did I say to change the atmosphere? Madam should have been treating Song Zhuqing's illness these days, so there's been no news. Di Beichun said slowly. Although he had always firmly believed that the lack of news these days was not because something had happened to Hong Zhuang, he was also a little puzzled. What was the reason for Hong Zhuang's delay for so many days? When he found out that Song Zhuqing was poisoned, he connected the dots and guessed the whole story from beginning to end. He had seen the process of Hong Zhuang developing the antidote. Once she started researching, everything around her seemed to be automatically blocked by her. It seemed that she had been studying how to detoxify the poison for the past 7 days. As for coming out together now, it must be that the detoxification was successful. Even though he had just taken a casual glance, he was keenly aware that President Song and Song Zhuqing were extremely polite to Hong Zhuang. Even if Hong Zhuang was the holy maiden of the light world, her attitude was a little too warm. However, after connecting all the dots, everything made sense. Huang Futing finally understood. So if that's the case, no wonder I felt that President Song was particularly warm when I looked at him just now. "Young master, do you think Madam is doing this for us?" Di Beichun's eyes gradually deepened, but he just looked at the figure outside the window without speaking. Bailey Hongzhuang had lunch under the warm hospitality of President Song and Song Zhuqing. The other party wanted to invite her to the Metal Attribute Guild as a guest, but they gave up after she repeatedly declined. "Hong Zhuang has been with me for so many years, but this is the first time I've seen President Song so warm. If others saw it, I'm afraid they wouldn't believe it." Liu Hongwei was full of smiles. He and Song Langtian had known each other for a long time. This guy was usually upright and plain-spoken, and even his son followed his temperament. Usually, even if others tried to curry favor with him, he wouldn't pay much attention. As for treating others so warmly, that was unprecedented. President Song is a very good person, and he loves his son very much. After she cured Song Zhuqing, he could feel that President Song was more excited than Song Zhuqing. This was the difficulty of being a parent. Liu Hongwei nodded slightly, then said, "Why did you come to the sacred assembly this time? Based on my understanding of you, if there's nothing, you probably wouldn't take the initiative to come to the assembly." Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang was a little embarrassed. Thinking about it carefully, she really hadn't taken it back for a long time. "I came to the sacred of the assembly of the sacred assembly. I have something to discuss with President Song." "Oh." Liu Hongwei raised his eyebrows. "There's no harm." Bailey Hongzhuang looked around and then said, "President, let's wait until we're in the house." This was no small matter, and there were many people around, so he naturally wouldn't let the matter be exposed. Noticing Bailey Hongzhuang's grave expression, Liu Hongwei nodded, and his expression became a little more serious. Chapter 60-69. President, what do you think of the dark attribute cultivators? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Liu Hongwei tentatively. She didn't go straight to the point. If Liu Hongwei's attitude was extremely firm, then she didn't have to say too much. Such a strange question was undoubtedly beyond Liu Hongwei's expectations. He frowned slightly and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with some doubts. Dark attribute cultivators? Why are you suddenly asking me this question? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. I feel that the upper realm cultivators seem to reject the dark attribute, so I wanted to ask for your opinion, President. Lu Hongwei pondered for a moment. How could he not know that Bailey Hongzhuang must have other motives for asking this question? It was just that before he agreed, Bailey Hongzhuang wouldn't say the real reason. Actually, I know about the situation between you and young Master D. Not only is young Master D a dark attribute cultivator, but he's also a very outstanding one. Lu Hongwei paused, then continued. Actually, when you were chosen as the Holy Maiden of Light, everyone was quite controversial. The main reason was your union with young Master D. Although you haven't been in the upper realm for long, I believe you have some understanding of the war hundreds of years ago. This kind of thing is a problem left behind by the era, but now no one will talk about the attribute problem between you and young Master D. You don't have to worry. Thinking back to when Bailey Hongzhuang became the Holy Maiden of Light, if it wasn't because the Holy Maiden of Light hadn't appeared for too long and the Holy Maiden Crystal had recognized Bailey Hongzhuang, there would inevitably be twists and turns. However, everyone was too expectant of the saintess of the Holy Light. Hence, they turned a blind eye to this matter. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. This matter really didn't make it too difficult for her at that time. She also knew in her heart that the president must have helped her to solve it. President, what I actually want to know more is whether you reject the dark attribute cultivators. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows and said seriously, actually, the attribute is not something that can be decided by the cultivator himself. Isn't it a little biased to defeat an entire boat of people just because of one attribute? Lu Hongwei frowned when he heard that. Hongzhuang, I feel like you're not happy with the current situation. Don't tell me. Or perhaps Di Beiqian is planning something? As the president of the Radiant Sacred Assembly, Lu Hongwei was not a fool. Even though Bailey Hongzhuang had only said a few probing words, he had already guessed it. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't hide it anymore. Actually, from the moment she came here, she knew that she couldn't hide this news from the president. However, she believed in the president. President, I believe in your character, and I'm very grateful for your care all this time. It was all thanks to your help that I was able to become the Saintess of the Light. I guess you already know why I'm here today. I'm here to ask for your opinion. If you don't agree, I'll resign from the position of the Saintess of the Light. I don't want to implicate the entire Radiant Sacred Assembly because of my personal actions. At the same time, I also hope that you can keep this a secret and don't spread it. Chapter 60-70. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Lu Hongwei's pupils shrunk and his heart was filled with shock. He looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a complicated expression and remained silent for a long time, because these words brought him too much shock. He always knew that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beiqian had a very deep relationship, but he never thought that she would be willing to give up the position of Holy Maiden for Di Beiqian. This was an important position in the eyes of others, but she could so calmly say that she would give it up. From her expression, there was not even the slightest bit of struggle, as if this position was not worth mentioning compared to Di Beiqian. He did not know if it was because of this reason that Bailey Hongzhuang was able to surpass Xiao Sou to become the Holy Maiden. The two of them had completely different attitudes towards this position. However, other than this, he was even more surprised by Bailey Hongzhuang's trust in him. If such an important matter was leaked out, it would definitely cause a huge impact. As long as he opposed it, Bailey Hongzhuang might not be able to leave from today onwards. She clearly knew that coming here would be risky, but she still insisted on coming in order not to affect the Holy Assembly and also to give him an explanation. In fact, thinking about it carefully, he had not done anything for Bailey Hongzhuang. He had always been protecting the Holy Maiden. When the Xiao family and the Jun family made a move against Bailey Hongzhuang, they had ignored the title of the Holy Maiden and trampled on the dignity of the Holy Assembly. This young girl in front of him had remembered everything in her heart and was full of respect and gratitude towards the Holy Assembly. Under such circumstances, even if he opposed this matter, he could not be extremely agitated. In the face of such an honest and sincere child, all means and schemes seemed too dirty. Bailey Hongzhuang was not in a hurry, and only quietly waited for Lu Hongwei's answer. She knew that her words would definitely cause a shock. At this moment, Lu Hongwei's feelings must be extremely complicated, and he needed time to think it over. However, she believed that she had not misjudged him. After a long while, Lu Hongwei, who had been silent all this time, slowly said, "Hongzhuang, you are really bold." Noticing that Lu Hongwei did not turn hostile, Bailey Hongzhuang quietly sighed in relief. At least this meant that the situation did not develop in the worst direction. You should be very clear about the discrimination and exclusion towards the dark attribute. Young Master D himself is an exception. Not only is he the young master of the D family, but he is also an extremely powerful dark attribute practitioner. There are many reasons why he has reached this step, and one of them is because you are the Holy Maiden. Lu Hongwei's face was serious. Di Beichen's success was almost impossible to replicate because he had too many factors. In addition to his own strength, the Di family and Bailey Hongzhuang were also his helpers. Thinking back to when everyone knew that Di Beichen had the dark attribute, their feelings were actually very complicated. He believed that the Di family also had some complaints, but they were suppressed by the Di family. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. I understand the president's meaning. It is because Beichen has the dark attribute, and also because he understands the situation of dark attribute practitioners, that he wants to change everything. Chapter 6071. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's serious expression, Lu Hongwei sighed faintly. Hongzhuang, there's no such thing as fairness in this world to begin with. Some people are arrogant and despotic, doing all kinds of bad things, but they live a very glorious life, while some people have a stable life, but inexplicably lose their lives. Many times, we see a lot of injustice, but we can't do anything about it. In this world, the weak are prey to the strong, and the strong are respected. You said that everyone has blocked the path of dark cultivators. That's right, but have you ever thought that Di Beichen still managed to stand up? As long as he's strong enough and has a respectable status, even if he's a dark cultivator, he's still in existence that everyone respects. Lu Hongwei's gaze was distant, and his expression was complicated. What happened back then was a huge blow to them, but it was also a form of training. The power of dark cultivators is really terrifying, and their methods of controlling corpses are even more terrifying. You don't know what happened back then, and you don't understand what kind of catastrophe they went through back then. Actually, everyone knows that this kind of behavior is cruel to them, but once they're allowed to develop, it'll be even more cruel to us. Listening to these words, the look on Bailey Hongzhuang's face became complicated. Perhaps they had different ideas from those in power. What they saw was how difficult the lives of dark cultivators were. But what Lu Hongwei and the others saw was the destructive power of dark cultivators on the entire upper realm. Therefore, they would rather let these people suffer than let more people bear the risk. Actually, it couldn't be said that anyone's thoughts were wrong. It was just that their standpoints were different. Her thoughts were shaken for a moment, but she quickly stabilized them again. Because, in this world, there could be strong people appearing at any time. Even if dark cultivators were very strong, it didn't mean that they wanted to control or destroy the entire world. President, I think that if everyone treated the darkness attribute cultivators with a normal attitude, the incident back then might not have happened. Her bright phoenix eyes were clear and serious. If a cultivator with peerless talent and astonishing ambition appeared in another guild, he would also be able to do all of this. Actually, I don't think worry is a reason. Although dark cultivators are very powerful, the number of awakened dark cultivators is very small. In fact, after so many years of suppression, their living space had become smaller and smaller, and their strength was generally lower. Why can't we give them a chance to survive? They had already considered this problem long before they decided to establish the Dark Sacred Assembly with Di Beichen. No matter which faction it was, there would definitely be some people with dark hearts. It was not only the dark attribute. Since the dark attribute already existed in this world, why couldn't everyone treat it normally? Just as He Shinjun thought, he only hoped that everyone could face the darkness attribute and not look down on it. Lu Hongwei's expression was solemn. He actually wanted to persuade Bailey Hongzhuang. Such a move was too dangerous. It wasn't easy for the Holy Light Assembly to find the Holy Maiden of Light, and no matter how they looked at it, Bailey Hongzhuang's performance was very satisfactory. Chapter 6072. It would be best if he could convince Bailey Hongzhuang to give up on this plan. However, based on the current situation, he was afraid that he would not be able to convince Bailey Hongzhuang at all. Even he could not refute some of the latter's words. If this matter was imperative, and if Bailey Hongzhuang continued to hold the title of Saint of the Light, things would become very complicated. As the president, he knew too well that the Light Sacred Assembly was the most resistant to the dark attribute among all the guilds. This was because the dark attribute was the opposite of the Light Sacred Assembly. Hongzhuang, I understand what you're thinking, but what you're doing is going against the law of the world. Even if you have the protection of the D family and the Lin family, you still can't withstand such pressure. Do you really want to do this? This won't do you any good at all. Lu Hongwei could not understand. This was indeed a good way to save the dark attribute cultivators from the fire and water. However, with Di Beichen's situation, it was not worth it at all. We're all very clear about this. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was calm. Her deep eyes were shining with a dazzling light. But as long as we live in this world, there are many things that must be done, even if it's a big risk, even if it's a failure. President, I expected that you wouldn't agree. As long as you don't publicize this matter in advance, I'm already very grateful. A faint smile appeared on Bailey Hongzhuang's fair and delicate face. She roughly understood Lu Hongwei's thoughts, but she was still very grateful. Because Lu Hongwei was willing to tell her so much, it proved that he treated her sincerely. If he did not care about her at all, he would not have to go through so much trouble to say that Zheshi was evil. He might even have taken action. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's unwavering expression, Lu Hongwei sighed. He had seen many outstanding juniors, and Bailey Hongzhuang was without a doubt the most outstanding of them all. In fact, he also understood that some people would often do things that ordinary people could not understand. They were paranoid and crazy, but it was these kinds of people who could very likely achieve things that would shock you. No matter if it was Bailey Hongzhuang or Di Beichen, the risk was too great. Even if someone had thought about it before, no one dared to do it. However, these two young people had actually put such a crazy move into action. If he really succeeded, it would definitely be a huge undertaking. Do you already have a comprehensive plan? It won't be easy to accomplish all of this. Even if it does succeed, the darkness attribute inheritance has disappeared for many years. It will be very difficult to become stronger. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was about to leave, Lu Hongwei spoke again. The reason why the various large guilds have been able to maintain their current state is because everyone's strength is evenly matched. If the Dark Sacred Assembly is established, but the members aren't strong enough, then it will be useless. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Don't worry, President. That won't be a problem. Lu Hongwei was slightly stunned. He could not help but think of Di Beichen. Immediately, he understood. So that's how it is. He actually has such luck. Di Beichen had been watching the Light Sacred Assembly from the restaurant all this time. During the previous 7 days, Hongzhuang had not cut to the chase. After returning, Hongzhuang would definitely discuss this matter with guild leader Lu. Hence, now was the most crucial moment. Chapter 6073. Huang Futing naturally understood that this was the most critical moment, so he kept a close eye on the Holy Light Assembly. The madam had taken such a huge risk for the sake of the Dark Sacred Assembly. No matter what, they must not let anything happen to the madam. Time passed by minute, but it was extremely unbearable for them. This was because they did not know what kind of decision President Liu would make. This was a gamble to begin with. After a long time, when the white figure appeared in front of the door of the Holy Assembly, Di Beichen's body that had been tense all this time relaxed. Huang Futing was just about to speak when he realized that his young master had disappeared. He hurriedly approached the window and realized that his young master had directly jumped down and appeared next to the madam. He immediately smiled and shook his head. His young master had always placed the madam at the top of his heart. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly walked out of the Holy Light Assembly. She thought that Beichun must be worried after being delayed here for so many days. She could not continue to stay here. She had to hurry back. Just as she was deep in thought, a white figure descended from the sky and appeared next to her in the blink of an eye. There was a moment of surprise on her beautiful and refined little face. After sensing the familiar and reassuring aura, a bright and beautiful smile bloomed on her peerless face. Many people on the street had noticed this scene. The young lady in white and the young man in white were standing together. The scene was pleasing to the eye and magnificent. When the crowd recognized the two of them, the amazement in their hearts deepened. Isn't that the Holy Maiden and young Master D? That's right, it's them. The rumors are true. The relationship between the two of them is really enviable. As Bailey Hongzhuang and D Beichun's reputation grew, their relationship became a much-told story. Many young men and women hoped that they could have such an unswerving love. Beichun, what are you doing here? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled as she looked at the stunningly handsome face. Even the sunlight was not as dazzling as him. D Beichun held her little hand. I missed you. These three simple words touched Bailey Hongzhuang's heart inexplicably. How could she not know that D Beichun was the one she was most worried about when she left? I haven't been back for so long. Beichun must be worried. So he came over. Don't worry. I'm fine. Bailey Hongzhuang opened her hand and interlocked her fingers with D Beichun's. She felt at ease when she was with him. When she was alone, she had always been fearless. Only when she was with Beichun could she not think about anything and truly relax. Let's go home. D Beichun didn't ask anything. He just gently held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand and left the Holy Assembly. Go home. It was a very heartwarming word. Although nothing dangerous had happened in the past few days, she had to admit that she was really tired. She hadn't rested for 7 days. In addition, she was careful just now. Now that she was relaxed, she felt that her breathing had become smooth. After seeing the scene downstairs, Huang Futing didn't jump down immediately. Madam hadn't had it easy these days. He didn't want to be an eyesore. Therefore, he slowly walked down from upstairs. When he appeared in front of D Beichun and Bailey Hongzhuang, the timing was just right. Let's go. We're going back. D Beichun said. Chapter 6074. Huang Futing's face was full of smiles. Isn't that so? Young Master is worried about Madam's safety. Since you entered the Holy Light Assembly, we have been guarding here. Fortunately, Madam has finally come out today. Otherwise, I'm worried that young Master would directly kill his way in. He finally understood that young Master could be indifferent to everything, but when it came to Madam, he really took it to heart. Since the day I entered, Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly stunned and looked at D Beichun with some surprise. She thought that Beichun came because she had been delayed here for a few days, but now it seemed that Beichun had been here since the day she set off. In that case, she had said so much to Beichun before, but Beichun did not change his mind at all. Under Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze, D Beichun pretended not to hear and said to himself, We've been out for a few days. It's time for us to go back. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but laugh, but her heart felt exceptionally warm. She had always understood that Beichun cared about her very much. From the first time they met until now, as long as it was about her, Beichun had never neglected it. When searching for her origins, Beichun was more worried than her. When she came to the upper realm, Beichun was worried that she would be bullied. In fact, many times she understood that Beichun was not a person who would say everything, but it could be seen from the things he did. Just as she did not have to worry about the elders not liking her after she went to the D family, she did not have to worry about her status after knowing about Xiao Sou's marriage. This was because she had enough trust in Beichun. Huang Futing also smiled faintly and did not say anything. Usually, when he was dealing with other matters, he did not see young Master like this. Come to think of it, he would only act like this in front of Madam. Along the way, Deep Beichun didn't take the initiative to mention President Lu's reaction. In fact, if it weren't for the fact that Hong Zhuang didn't want to affect the Holy Assembly, they wouldn't have to come here at all. President Lu's position was completely different from theirs, so the possibility of him agreeing was close to zero. Bailey Hong Zhuang also walked quietly, her mind still thinking about the conversation she had in the house. After a while, Bailey Hong Zhuang took the initiative to say, "I've already talked to Chairman Lu." "Okay," Di Beichen replied. "Aren't you curious about the answer?" Bailey Hong Zhuang raised her eyebrows and looked at Di Beichen. Her bright eyes were filled with curiosity. Di Beichen raised their interlocked hands and chuckled. "I can roughly guess. At least President Lu is a good person. Otherwise, it wouldn't be you who walked out, but me who went in and snatched you out." Uffed. Bailey Hong Zhuang couldn't help but chuckle and nodded. "You're right. President Lu is actually very good." After knowing my decision, although he was shocked, he didn't get angry because of it. For this reason, he specially reminded me of the risks I would have to face. He wanted to persuade me, but after seeing that I was unmoved, he didn't say anything more. "Madam, what is President Lu's attitude?" Huang Futing frowned. It seemed that after talking for a long time, there was still no result. "He neither supports nor opposes it," Di Beichen said. Chapter 6075. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Huang Futing could not help but sigh. However, he also understood that with President Lu's status, it was already good enough that he did not directly object. According to his understanding of the Holy Assembly, ordinary people would not accept this at all. Di Beichen was not worried. In fact, he understood that Bailey Hongzhuang did this for his own peace of mind and also to give an explanation to the Holy Assembly. From the beginning to the end, she did not have any hope. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled up slightly. In fact, President Lu's attitude was already a pleasant surprise for her. This was because Chairman Lu didn't refute it directly. On the contrary, Chairman Lu was well aware of the difficult situation that dark attribute cultivators had been in all these years. Even he had to admit that this situation was unfair to dark attribute cultivators. She clearly felt that President Lu was a little touched when she mentioned this point. She was very glad that they were not the only ones who thought of all this. Since President Lu had thought of this point, there must be others who had thought of it too. Even if the vast majority of people were still very resistant to the darkness attribute, she was very clear about this world. When some influential people agreed, the voices of opposition would quickly decrease. This was because the right to speak had always been in the hands of a small number of people. As long as the identity of darkness attribute cultivators was confirmed, even if it would take a long time for everyone to eliminate the views of rejection, it was not a big deal. The problem of time would eventually be solved with time. Di Beichun, I think the situation may not be as bad as we think. Suddenly, Bailey Hongzhuang's voice sounded, and a faint smile appeared on her beautiful face. Hearing this, Di Beichen and Huang Futing could not help but look at her. After seeing the slightly relaxed smile on the latter's face, their mood inexplicably improved. During this period of time, because the Dark Sacred Assembly was about to be established, no one said anything on the surface, but everyone was under a lot of pressure. A storm was coming. Under the seemingly calm surface, everyone could not help but worry. However, Bailey Hongzhuang's smile was so healing that it made them forget their worries. Di Beichen looked deeply at Bailey Hongzhuang and said, "My wife's words are like gold." Bailey Hongzhuang was full of smiles, but her mind was thinking about President Lu's hesitant expression. She understood that what she had said had shaken President Lu. Perhaps what she had said now was useless, but she hoped that when that day came, President Lu would be willing to help. Because no one could guarantee that their descendants would not be of the darkness attribute. If all the things that they hated now happened to their own descendants, would they still have such hatred in their hearts? Zhao Jian walked alone on the empty road. He looked his soulless and dispirited and haggard look. Overnight, he was deserted. This feeling was a huge blow to anyone. However, facing his brother's departure, he could not say he was wrong. He constantly asked himself in his heart, but when he thought of Huang Futing, All his questions turned into annoyance and hatred. He hated Huang Futing. He felt that Huang Futing had ruined everything. If it were not for Huang Futing, he would not have ended up like this. Chapter 76. That damned Huang Futing. Zhao Jian cursed. What do you mean I've changed? It's all just an excuse. His dark eyes were filled with anger. He was sure that these people were just using this excuse to leave him so that they could hug Huang Futing's thigh. They just couldn't find a reason to push all the blame onto him. He would be a fool if he really believed it. I have to pull myself together. I can't let Huang Futing see me as a joke. Zhao Jian's gaze gradually became firm. He had been muddle-headed for the past few days and couldn't figure it out. At this moment, he finally figured out. Why do you have to push all the blame onto him? It must be because everyone had changed their minds from the moment they saw the Dark Sacred Assembly. He was the one who was the most rude to Di Beichen. The others didn't say anything. As long as he wasn't around, Di Beichen might accept others. He had been thinking for everyone for such a long time, but no one treated him as a brother. What Dark Sacred Assembly? Di Beichen had already made up his mind to not accept him. What did the establishment of the Dark Sacred Assembly have to do with him? The next moment, Zhao Jian suddenly changed his direction and walked towards the Piercing Wind City. Piercing Wind City, Xiao family. Ever since the negotiation with the Yujue was successful, Xiao Yanlong had stayed in the family and tried his best to nurture the young cultivators in the family. The most outstanding batch had already fallen in this trial. They only had a year's time. Although it was too short, they could only do their best. The Di family's land of inheritance was not simple. The three big families had opened it together, and after entering, it would definitely be a trial. If the family's disciples were too weak, they would just have to hand over the items. The Di family's strength was getting stronger and stronger, causing him to feel more and more tired. Who would have thought that Xiao Shou would be pregnant at this time? He had no choice. As the child's grandfather, he couldn't be so cruel. Xiao Shou had been staying in her house. To outsiders, she said that she was in seclusion, but in reality, she was taking care of her baby. Junhong Chung was also very concerned about his only grandson. From time to time, he would send people to deliver some supplements. The child in Xiao Shou's belly was his greatest hope. On this day, Xiao Yanlong heard an unbelievable piece of news, so he immediately found Jun Hongsheng and brought him over. Looking at the skinny and dark-skinned man in front of them, the faces of the two patriarchs were filled with shock. Is what you said true? Di Beichen is establishing the Dark Sanctum? That's right. Even the headquarters of the Dark Sacred Assembly has been built. It's near Emperor Cloud City, the man replied. How is this possible? Xiao Yanlong frowned. His eyes were filled with thoughts. This news was too sudden and too unbelievable. The Di family is in the limelight right now. As long as we continue to develop with this momentum, perhaps our family status will rise again and become a transcendent aristocratic family. At this time, aren't they shooting themselves in the foot by doing such a thing? Junhong Chung nodded slightly and said, I think this news is most likely false. Di Beichen wouldn't make such a crazy decision, and Di Yujue wouldn't agree. Establishing the Dark Sacred Assembly in the upper realm was something that only a madman would do. Obviously, in their eyes, Di Yujue and Di Beichen were not madmen. Chapter 77. Zhao Jian had spent a tremendous amount of effort to meet the two family heads. With his status, meeting the family heads was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Now that he had finally managed to meet them, the two family heads did not believe him at all. He could not help but feel anxious. Seeing Zhao Jian's anxious look, Junhong Chung slowly narrowed his eyes. His gaze was vigilant and cold. You're of the darkness attribute as well. Establishing the Dark Sanctuary will only bring you benefits and no harm. You've suddenly come to tell us this at a time like this. Could it be that Di Beichen has come up with some new scheme to trick us? After falling into the hands of the Di family time and time again, they had become more careful in their dealings. This 1 year was a period of stability that they had obtained with great difficulty. Nothing was more important than the child in Xiao Shou's womb. However, they also understood that the Di family must be very dissatisfied with this 1 year. If it had not been for the importance of the land of heritage, they would not have agreed to it. Now that this news had suddenly spread, perhaps the D family was deliberately baiting them so that they could take the opportunity to attack them again. Zhao Jian hurriedly waved his hand. Family heads, I have a deep grudge with D Baichen's subordinate, Huang Futing. To be honest, I didn't come to inform you of this news out of good intentions. I just didn't want to see Huang Futing getting too complacent. That's why I wanted to spread this news. The scene before him had clearly exceeded Zhao Jian's expectations. He had thought that the two family heads would be very happy after hearing this news, and that he would be treated well here. He never thought that the two family heads would not believe him at all. They even thought that he was a spy. In fact, ever since Zhao Jian had awakened the darkness attribute, he had always been with people of the same attribute. He did not have enough experience in dealing with matters. Even if he had a good plan, it was not enough in front of the two old foxes. Jun Hongcheng and Xiao Yanlong looked at each other. Both of them raised their eyebrows slightly. Clearly, they would not believe Zhao Jian's words so easily. This person's sudden appearance was already very suspicious. Now that the news was so unreliable, they were almost certain that it was all fake. Men, take him away. Xiao Yanlong furrowed his brows. He did not want to waste time on such a groundless matter. If word got out, wouldn't he become a joke? Master Xiao, I'm telling the truth. Zhao Jian was completely dumbfounded. He never thought that this would be the outcome. However, Xiao Yanlong did not care about him at all. When he sent someone to take him away, he even gave the other person a look. Regardless of whether the news was true or not, this fellow could not be allowed to live. Xiao family head, Jun family head, please let me go. Neither Xiao Yanlong nor Jun Hongcheng took the initiative to speak. They just sat there quietly, countless thoughts swirling in their minds. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.